Good morning. Morning.
He's been up late. I'm caught up. We'll take care of that. Thank you. I'm out of them. I mean, I've had 4 people. I don't have any.
You know that
was talking about
You're gonna hand it back to me now.
All right. We have 8 gallons.
Okay. I'm gonna toss it my way.
Better check and see
I'm gonna toss it my way and I'll cover it.
Oh, here. Right there. That's what I'm looking for. Is that number right there? Perfect. Historical preservation.
that's why you have the whole thing. You're gonna do it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure Maria would remember. She's got a brain like mine, she wouldn't have.
Maria remembers everything. Like an elephant.
All right, if we can please stand for a moment of silence. You can do the pledge now, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're calling the meeting to order. And we have a quorum present by the attendance of all 5 directors. Mr. John Holt, Director, Deborah Isaac, Treasurer, myself, Dan Sullivan, Vice President Bill Herman, and Secretary Maria Perkins. So we do have a quorum. Also present is our Comptroller, Andrew Smallin, our Executive Officer, Richard Lawrence, and our Executive Secretary, Christina Rodriguez. So with that, we'll begin. First of all, I'm going to ask for a formal approval of the proposed agenda by the board. These agendas that are proposed, and by accepting and acting on them, they're can be considered approved, but they really should be approved formally. And this agenda in particular, because there's a change, as we've added the 15-minute open forum for the members at the end of the meeting. We're still going to maintain the member comment section in advance of the action items to allow members to get their thoughts before the board prior to the board voting on them. So I would like to entertain a motion that we approve this proposed agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have a second? Any discussion?
I have one item. On letter D, I'd like that amended to also add sending the complaint that we received last month that we agreed was going to get sent to the lawyer regarding the declarations vote and the legality of it. I'd like that included in letter D as well.
Where are you referring to on the agenda, Maria?
Under number 13, action items, letter D. So I apologize because there's a D for equine committee as well. But it says authorize the executive officer to engage the association's law firm for the purpose of reviewing and to make recommendations for revision of all governing documents. I'd like that to be amended to include sending the complaint with all the attachments supporting the complaint regarding the legality of our declarations vote that was submitted to us last month. I'd like that included.
Yeah, you making a motion to add that to it?
Yes.
Is there a second to that? Could you state the motion again?
Okay.
I know you did several times, but.
Yes, I'll go ahead and say it again. So as it currently reads, what I am proposing as a motion to amend it is it would read, authorize the executive officer to engage the association's law firm for the purpose of reviewing and to make recommendations for the revision of all governing documents, comma, and submit to the law firm the complaint received calling into question the legality of the declarations vote as presented last month.
That's a separate issue, I think, outside of this as my agenda reads, we're authorizing executive officer to engage an independent auditing firm to tabulate and certify the results of the upcoming election.
No, sir, that's letter C. I'm referring to letter D, Delta.
Consider approval of facility use agreement for FCSA Old Calvary Stable.
Sir, I believe your agenda is backwards. Do we have a, can we get a copy of this?
Oh, I thought you said B. You said
D is in Delta.
Oh, okay.
So it is the same topic of sending the documents to the law firm. And in the last meeting, we had agreed that we were sending the email with the supporting documentation to the lawyer for them to have a month to tell us what the findings were. And to my knowledge, that has not been done. So I'm requesting it be formally put as an agenda item, which is what I sent in the email, and it is not reflected on this agenda.
All right, thank you. Actually, I did review that portion of the meeting that you're questioning on the YouTube film, and there was discussion of doing that, but there was never any agreement, which is also going to come up later in the proposed minutes. The motion that was made, that was voted on, and the motion was made by me, was very straightforward. It was simply a motion to table the proposed amendment until the January meeting. Period. There was discussion about things going to the attorneys and them reviewing it, and as long as we were going to do that, maybe they could look at some other items at the same time. There was a question by you that maybe you could bring it up the next day when we were having the orientation meeting, and it was suggested that that might not be a time they would like to entertain that. And so the motion simply stated to table the matter until the January meeting, and which you seconded, and which then passed with 3 in favor, 1 opposed.
Yes, sir, and if you listen to that video, which I watched and listened to as we did the minutes, which we're going to talk about later, you'll hear the full extent of that motion that was made. And again, that has nothing to do with what I'm asking for this letter D. We did discuss very thoroughly that complaint that we received and the supporting documentation that was later sent to the board. And I requested, when you asked for the board agenda inputs, I requested that this line item be added so that we officially do vote for this to be sent to the attorney while we are sending them all governing documents. Because this letter D does not meet that that same requirement to send that grievance with the supporting documentation to the attorney for review.
All right.
So that was my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, but I think we need to put this to rest one way or the other with our lawyers. There's a lot of talk out amongst the membership, and then can it be done at any other point in time if we don't get a real true answer to the question?
Well, I disagree. I don't think that we can be subjected to a potential endless stream of recruited people bringing up one matter after another that occurred years ago. This one was nearly 2 years ago, I think 21 months, and require and put the obligation on us to go get a legal opinion to support their interpretations and contentions. I think if they want a legal opinion, they can go get one, their own.
Well,
But
sir,
should not be put on the port and require us to spend the money to get legal opinions for anybody and everybody that may object to something they don't like that may have happened 1, 2, 3, 5 years ago. So that's my position on it.
well, sir, with regard to that, we've been given meeting after meeting laundry lists of things that weren't dealt with by previous boards, laundry lists of things that were done incorrectly that we're trying to fix. This is a pretty significant claim, and with some very strong documentation to support it. And I think that we're not doing our due diligence if we don't get this reviewed. Originally, you had suggested that the front office do an investigation of it, and it was the executive officer that suggested that we send this to the lawyer. Now, if our management is suggesting that we send this to the lawyer for the lawyer to review, then I agree with that. But multiple times in the meeting last month, we discussed this at length. And it started out as, we're going to give the management 30 days to come back with some sort of interpretation of this. And then it morphed into, we're sending this to the lawyer. So I'm just asking for us to vote for it to go to the lawyer. And one more minute. And with regard to us paying for that, it is our membership that is paying for that lawyer fee. And if our membership is who's questioning a decision that the board made and actions that the board did, then I think it is well within our purview to get the correct answer on whether it was done correctly or not.
Mr. Sullivan, may I respond since I was called and apparently being spoken for? In actuality, what I did was I said that we should send the documents to the attorneys for their review with all of the other governing documents as we had planned to do. Now remember, at that time, this board was ambushed by those accusations and claims, and the board had no opportunity to review it just minutes before the meeting, or actually during the meeting. So at that point, I said, let's send the documents with all the rest, send the documents to the attorneys for their review to determine whether or not they were legal. In actuality, the accusations that are being made, the allegations that are being made, have nothing to do with the content of the declaration. Rather, it has only to do with the protocol that was followed for the election process and the vote count. That's what's being disputed. And I would also point out to you that the declarations, the old declarations and the revised declarations, they both have methodology for disputing anything in those declarations. And this allegation and accusation is not the proper way, the proper protocol for disputing the declarations. And I have indeed done a study of those accusations, as poorly stated as they were, and I will give it to you in my executive's report. I do not believe that this needs to be sent to the attorneys. It is not founded on it's not well documented, and it's the wrong interpretation. So,
thank you. I also have a problem with supporting evidence that you quote, Maria, that she supplies. Among them is a email from me that was stolen, We were hacked a couple of months ago. I don't know if that's when it was obtained or not, but it was a private email. It was put forth and published in her complaint individually, when in fact it was part of a long stream thread of emails that showed that the matter, that I brought the question to the attention of the board, and the board deliberated and discussed it thoroughly and came to a decision. And the decision was to go forward and with notice to the members that it was occurring and have the board count the ballots. I stood by that decision following the code of ethics that require me, unlike what is happening often nowadays. The other in that document simply pointed out that I brought it to the attention. She's contended that I tried to sweep it under the rug and I didn't act to correct an error or mistake. There was no error or mistake to correct in the first place. Of her other supporting evidence documents, she included the 2017 declaration, which is a declaration that was being voted on. It wasn't even in effect at the time. She also included the 2018 bylaws, which wasn't even in existence at the time this action was taken. So her supporting documents, evidence are at best questionable. At any rate, we have your motion. You spoke for it. Mr. Lawrence added some input.
And I'm going to amend it.
You don't have the floor. I spoke against it. And now I would ask Deborah, what do you have to say?
I just think we really need, if these documents are going to the lawyer, they need to specify if it's right or it's wrong and let the membership know their concerns with it.
You do realize that this declaration was reviewed twice by our attorneys at the time, and in addition to the two formal reviews by two different attorneys on their staff, there were a number of conferences with the attorney regarding them in person and by telephone.
All I know is the way I read the 2017 before they were accepted. I've read the new ones, and in my mind, it still says that any independent vote of the membership is to go to an independent auditor. That's all I see.
That's not what it states. But okay, John, do you have anything to say?
No.
Okay.
Well, then I'm going to amend my motion then, pending, because of the fact that all of our emails are privileged information that board members can see. I'd like to ask that full conversation be sent to the board so that we can see that deliberation process to justify the decision that was made. And then I'm going to amend my motion to withdraw that pending proof that the board actually did do its due diligence. It doesn't matter, ma'am, if it was 2 years ago or 5 days ago. It's being called into question, and we have the responsibility to give a proper answer to that.
There is going to be a proper answer delivered a little later on in this meeting, several answers. And so if you're going to withdraw the motion to amend the proposed amendment, I appreciate that. And there are other ways to deal with this matter down the road, if you so care. I think you may need to wait and hear the responses to Ms. Alexander's accusations, and which came in at the last minutes before the meeting. And now again, this month at 8:19 last night, I received an email from her, a very hostile email that borders on slanderous and just...
I call the vote for this formal approval of the proposed agenda. I call the vote, sir. If we're going to vote on it, let's vote on
You're
it.
not withdrawing it? No, you were going to vote on it as presented?
Yes, that's what the motion is after I withdraw my amendment to it.
Okay. This is,
So D stands as originally written, is that what you're saying?
Yes. I'm gonna wait to hear what you guys have to say.
okay, well, this is an action item. We haven't got the action items yet, so I think we have to put it off, right?
I understand that, sir, but originally the motion was to vote for the proposed agenda. And I had submitted a motion to amend letter D, Delta, and I am withdrawing that motion because you say that we're gonna have explanation for my amendment. Therefore, I'm calling to vote that we approve the formal, the proposed agenda.
Okay, but before we vote, keeping in our practice and what the agenda says, I think we need to allow any members that want to comment on it to come forward and speak now.
Specifically on the declarations, you mean?
On this one action item.
I'd love to. I kind of have a question. As you read the Texas Property Code, it mentions needing 67% of a vote to amend the declarations. However, it says that if you have something in the bylaws, it supersedes it. So basically, in the bylaws it state, or excuse me, in the declaration it states you can amend it with the majority vote of the lot owners, okay?
No,
Yes, it does. I
No.
just read it like 3 minutes
it's a
ago.
majority vote of the votes cast.
Okay, so you're saying that the votes cast is the only thing that counts. You're saying it doesn't say it's a majority vote of the voting members.
Yes, I'm saying that.
Okay, and when was that passed?
That's been in the declaration since I think the 2011 and maybe before.
Okay, so so basically if you send out 1,000 letters and only 750 come back, you're saying it's the majority of that 750?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just as an added note to that, if it required a majority or even 67% or a majority of the eligible voters, we would never ever change or accomplish anything because we don't get that good of a response to vote. We've got close to 1,800 members. We're lucky when we get 800 votes back. We don't get 900 plus. But that's just an added note. Thank you, Mr. Link. All right, all those in favor of approving item D as in dog or Delta under the action items signify by raising their hands, please.
Oh, as is, right?
As it is.
Okay, so that's,
Okay, all those that object. Do you abstain, Maria?
I voted for it.
Oh, well, I didn't see you.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll go sit next to you,
All right,
sir.
thank you. All right, it passes unanimously. All right, now, can I go get back to the motion that was made and seconded to approve the agenda? Is there any more discussion on that? All those in favor? Unanimous approval. As to the consent agenda, having just received the minutes just prior to the meeting, I'm going to suggest that we remove the minutes from the consent agenda and make this a separate item because there may be several corrections that are going to be suggested or proposed.
I'll agree to that. I'll agree to that.
Yeah, any individual director can pull anything out of the consent agenda, so thank you for your support.
Oh, I didn't read that, but okay.
All right. Next item is the secretary's report.
Okay. So I have two concerns that were brought to me. The first one is a question with a statement from Mrs. Graham, who is a member in good standing. The question is, why doesn't the fort benefit from the money collected from Sheriff's Department ticketing traffic violations? A portion, if not all, of monies collected should come back to the fort for our roads. The second thing that I received is from someone who just wrote a note and gave it to me, and it doesn't say the name on it. Can political signs be posted on common property? Looks like some have been placed in the easement of property. So for the second question, I'm assuming the answer is no, it cannot be on common property, it has to be on private property, correct? A
Correct.
political sign?
To the
So
best of my knowledge, and I believe you're limited to
4x6 is the limit.
one sign per candidate or something, and 2 signs. It's in the rules and regulations.
Well, the rules and regulations just state a maximum size of 4 foot by 6 foot. So I'm not going to point out any one particular candidate, but I would just ask whoever has put up signs, please confirm that you've got it in private property, not common property. And then for the first one, I'm just going to divert that to Mr. Lawrence and ask for an answer at some point. That's my report.
Thank you. Next is the treasurer's report. Deborah?
First, I'm going to do the reconciled bank balances for December 2018. Texas Community Bank credit card account, $7,259.97. Texas Community Bank and checking account, $60,951.88. Texas Community Bank money market account, $2,667.76. There is now a Texas Community Bank restricted fund, which was transferred in there in November of the amount of $25,000. Texas Community Bank flag account, $1,365 for a total in the actual bank accounts of $72,244.61 at the Texas Community Bank. The bank and trust, there's 68 general fund, $68,935.25. Bank and trust payroll account, $10,505.31 for a total in bank and trust on general funds of $79,440.56. For general fund accounting, both banks is $151,685. No, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. Hang on. $151,685.17. Bank and trust restricted fund, $362,310.84. Texas Community Bank restricted fund, $25,000 for a total of $387,310.84 in the restricted fund, of which $42,584.54 is historic building. The Los Morris Corporation at the Bank and Trust, a negative $807.66. Bank and Trust Fort Clark Hail Damage Repair Fund, $24,169.11 for a total funds of $562,357.46. Bank transfers, Bank and Trust General to Bank and Trust Payroll, $65,000 to fund payroll. Texas Community Bank credit card account to Texas Community Bank checking account, $95,000 to fund payments of operating expenses, for a total of $160,000, which is actually really $31,000 less than November when you take out the $25,000 that was put into the restricted fund at the Texas Community Bank.
I have some questions about the numbers we received. Is this an appropriate time to ask those questions, or should I wait for a different section of the meeting?
Well, the questions regarding the treasurer's report is absolutely the time.
Okay, great. So my first question is, how much of the restricted fund is obligated elsewhere? And what I mean by that is, I know there's a certain amount that we're not supposed to spend as collateral or something, but I don't see that here. So could someone answer that question for me?
I believe there's a certain amount that is in the restricted fund that has to be in there to cover something to do with our landfill.
That is correct. It's $140,000 to insure letters of credit, I believe. Is that right,
Yes,
Andrew?
it was increased to 151,000.
Okay, it was increased to 151,000. This is required by the state of Texas to insure against any serious problem with the landfill that needs to be taken care of. So we have letters of credit with the bank, and they have to be backed up and guaranteed with this money on deposit. So that's 151,000.
Okay, and then that's the only thing that we have obligated to that money, correct?
Historic building fund.
Well,
Historic
we
building?
have, yeah, there's also, in the total, there is the amount for the historic building preservation fund that's included in there. And then, of course, we have the obligations of the declaration that are not specific, but general in terms of having money to take care of certain mud taxes once a year, and also to for any capital improvements or repairs.
Okay, so if it's possible for future reports, could we see what is actually pulled aside as dedicated elsewhere? Because I think this number of $362,000 is misleading if we've got to subtract almost $200,000 from that. So we really have $162,000-ish.
Well, we have, may I respond?
Sure.
Yeah.
We have $387,000 in restricted fund, and the accounting is on a fund-by-fund basis. I can put a footnote in here. But
I'd like that, yeah.
I can put a footnote in there that says of the restricted fund, so much is not available to be spent.
I would like
And it
that.
would be misleading to exclude that 150,000 from the balance of the restricted fund as if we don't actually have it.
But we kind of don't if it's earmarked for specific reasons. But yes, a footnote would be fine.
Okay.
I just want to know how much actually is obligated elsewhere. And then I'm looking at these other pages, page 3. Last meeting I had asked for a comparison of last year to the deer harvest income. And then when I saw this month's report, I noticed that the deer harvest is at $50,000. So I would still like to see the comparison of how it looked last year. I understand there's variables, but I just want to see what it was.
I have that in my report.
Oh, okay, awesome, thank you. And then on page 3 as well, if it's possible, I would like to see an itemized list in the future, but possibly today, but in the future's fine, of the trade accounts that encompass our revenue, just a list of what they are. And then on page 4, the contract services. Because I noticed that the landscape contract has its own line item, and then right below it, it says contract services and has a number of the expense there. So I'd like to see that breakdown of what contract services we're paying for and that amount. And then also the supplies by department, if that's how we're broken out by. But the supplies is also misleading because I don't know exactly what supplies those are. And then with the electricity bills, Ms. Isaacs, are you still getting the bills for those, like all of our electricity bills? I know you had a really nice spreadsheet of them.
No, I have not gotten them lately. I do have a question, or had a question later on for Mr. Smolin, is for the past 3 months, they seem to be a whole lot lower. Is there a reason for them being lower, or were they misappropriated previous to you coming on? It seems like our electric bills were quite a bit higher previous to the last 3 months. They all
No,
look.
they weren't higher.
They weren't?
The accounting was wrong,
Okay.
so I tidied up the accounting.
Okay, because that was where I was going with that. I noticed also that there was higher electricity bills, and then now it's a lot less. So I didn't know if there was something that was raised
This was previously discussed, and what happened was a misunderstanding about the process of accounting because bills were expensed as they came in. And normally, when you pay a bill, you've already set up the payable, and when you pay it, you just pay it against the payable. So you've recorded the expense when the bill came in, that's accrual accounting. Because we were paying the electricity bill through credit card, a different person was accounting for the credit card and saying, oh, that's an electricity expense. So we had the electricity expense with the bill, and then we had the electricity expense again with the credit card, and that was incorrect. So I had to go back several months and tidy all of that up.
Could I see what that wound up being, what that cost was for those? Not right this second, but like what you went and tabulated again, the correct numbers for that? Because again, like the trend item, it just is
You want to know what the electricity expense was for each month? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, please.
For going how far back?
I would say could we please stop the chatter back there too? That please, I appreciate that. From when Ms. Isaacs first identified that we had, what month was that? Like August or September? I don't remember. Let's just say September, and that's fine. I'm just curious to see the trend, that's all. And then the next question I had was, did the uniform contract end finally or no? Because there's no expense for uniforms.
We have had some issues with, in fact, we were dealing with it this morning. Switch over from G&K to Cintas. They appear to have been slow in billing us, so we didn't have bills to expense at the time. And now they're coming to us and saying, well, they want us to confirm to them the payments we've made to them. So it's their accounting that is probably because of the transition, because that old company was taken over by Cintas, and in that transition from the old company, their accounting might not have been, might have been slow to catch up. I don't want to criticize them for poor accounting, but there's a lot of work involved in a takeover. And so we're sorting that account out, and on a year-to-date basis, once everything is caught up, you'll have the right numbers. But from month to month, it's not always exact. There might be a 0 one month, there might be 2 payments the next month.
Okay. And then for the marketing and advertising, are we going to be seeing a plan for that? Because I noticed that we spent $134 and we have budgeted a lot more than that. So I'm just asking the question.
Well, I would have to throw that back to you. Is the board going to map out what the board wants to see done in terms of marketing? You're on the board, so you could put forth a motion as to how that might unfold.
Okay. I'll sit down with you and we can work on that. That would be great.
I did have one question. We're through with our first quarter of 2018, 2019. When are we going to see our actual?
We can't hear you, Deb.
When are we actually going to see our quarterly for our budget, where we're sitting with our budget for the first quarter? When will we get those figures?
I thought we were getting that at 6 months.
Is it only 6 months?
Yes.
We had talked about that, yes.
Okay, all right.
And then on the Los Morris Corporation, I was very excited, by the way, to get all these more accurate figures. So, pardon all the questions. On the revenue, let's see. I'd like to see the sales of the alcohol from the bar versus the golf course, because I believe the golf course also sells alcohol, correct?
That's correct.
So can we see the breakdown of who's selling more alcohol, so we can kind of see where that revenue is coming in from? And then my secondary question to that is the alcohol sales that are sold at the golf course, where does that revenue go?
Well, it's reported as revenue for the golf course,
Okay.
for the golf club. But for statutory purposes, it has to be transferred over to Les Morris because Les Morris is the corporation that holds the liquor license. So the golf club the pro shop is not actually selling the liquor for the board, it's selling the liquor for Les Morris.
Okay, so I guess if I just
But if we
see
want
that
to measure
breakdown.
the performance of the pro shop, we have to give them credit for having that operation.
Right,
But statutorily, we have to transfer those sales back into Les Morris to report for sales tax purposes, for mixed beverage, sales tax purposes and statutorily.
okay. So then will we be able to see the sales of the golf course versus the bar in this report that you can provide?
If you want that, I'll make that, I'll show that, I'll break that out separately next month.
Yes, I mean, I just like to see the difference, like how's the bar doing in relation to how the golf course is doing?
Yeah.
And the same thing for expenses. I'd like to see the difference in what the expense is for the bar versus the expense for the golf course, if possible. Like, line items that really come out at me are like payroll, for example. How much do we pay in payroll at the bar versus payroll at the golf course? If that's where the two are delineated, but just expenses in general between the two.
Payroll would be a bit more difficult because first of all, we don't really know from month to month how much it's going to be at the bar, because if you have special events, you bring more people in. Right. Whereas the pro shop is relatively consistent, but we also have some people who are part-time at the pro shop and part-time somewhere else. So it's difficult to draw comparisons. I'll break out numbers and I'll see if I can make some sense of them. Okay. That's worth reporting.
Yeah, no, whatever you can do.
But then with respect to the payroll, we'd have to do a time and motion study in order to determine how much of the pro shop employees' time is used in selling beer. So
No, that's not what I'm asking for.
It's an expense to the pro shop, you follow me?
No. What I'm asking for is, I mean, I have no idea how many people work in each place, but I'm just using it as like random numbers. If 2 people work at the bar and 3 people work at the golf course and both of them are an expense, I'm curious of the $3,100 that we paid in payroll, how much of that was bar payroll and how much of that was golf course payroll? That's what I'm asking for.
The Les Morris expense is all bar. There is no, the employees at the pro shop are employees of Fort Clark Springs. They are not employees of Les Morris. And so again, statutorily, because these separate corporations with separate employee identification numbers have to account to the IRS separately for their employees, for withholdings and all the rest of it. We have to make that distinction between a Fort Clark employee at Pro Shop and a Les Morris employee at the bar.
So these expenses are only the bar, correct?
The alcohol expenses are all of the costs, because we have statutory responsibility for to the Texas Comptroller and to the Bureau, the Alcohol Bureau. But the employees have to be accounted for according to the IRS rules, which is slightly different.
Okay, so then for the cost of goods, is it possible to see how much alcohol we buy for one versus the other?
Yes.
That's what I want to see. I just want to see that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Those were all my questions.
All right. I think we can now move to the executive officer's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I was asked to prepare a response to Ms. Jenny Alexander's allegations and accusations that were presented with the Secretary's report at the December 2018 board meeting. Although not clearly stated, Ms. Alexander alleges that the previous board of directors mishandled the election to revise the Declaration of Protected Restrictions by following improper voting protocol when counting the votes. Ms. Alexander further alleges that the reported tally of the votes fell short of the number of votes needed to approve the proposed revised declaration. Ms. Alexander insists that the former secretary of the board, now president, was aware of the board's error and, quote, failed the association by not rectifying the discrepancy sooner, end quote. She further accuses the members of the previous board of conspiracy, quote, for allowing this to continue to be swept under the rug, end quote, as if it was a deliberate cover-up. Having impugned their reputations, Ms. Alexander then calls for an apology to the membership from the current president and the former directors. In support of her allegations and accusations, Ms. Alexander presented an illicitly disclosed private email obtained from an unnamed source as the smoking gun, so to speak. The entirety of her allegations and accusations rely on this one dubious email. She's not aware that the content of the email was later determined to be an error and was recanted by the person who wrote the email. After a thorough review of the applicable Texas law, the applicable industry standards as recited by the foremost authority of the HOA law in Texas, and the applicable governing documents of the association then in effect, I can report to you the following. And as you will see, Ms. Alexander could not be more wrong. As for the alleged improper voting protocol, Ms. Alexander asserts, quote, it is required that the revisions, amendments, adoption of our declarations of protective restrictions are to be counted by and approved by an independent auditing firm, C blank. The votes were counted by the board of directors at a board workshop, end quote. We presume that what Ms. Alexander means is that the votes cast in the election to revise the declarations must be counted by an independent auditing firm. However, you'll note that Ms. Alexander failed to provide a proper citation which definitively states such, and no citation can be given. Nowhere in the association's governing documents or in Texas law does it say, quote, it is required that the revisions, amendments, adoptions of our declarations of protective restrictions are to be counted and approved by an independent auditing firm. The association's bylaws of 2011, Article 4, Section 3G2 does come closest. It reads, quote, annual elections, tabulation and certification of the vote is to be handled by an impartial auditing firm designated by the board of directors. However, the election of March 2017 to revise the declaration was not an annual election. Excuse me. Therefore, Article 4, Section 3, requiring tabulation of votes by an independent auditing firm doesn't apply. In this instance, the 2011 Declaration of Protected Restrictions, Part 5, Section 6, Subsection 3, then in effect controls. It reads, quote, the board shall have the power at its discretion to amend this declaration if approved by an affirmative vote of a majority of the members' votes cast. An election to revise the declaration is not required to be called annually. The election may be called at the discretion of the board of directors, meaning the election may be called at any time. The election can be called as often as may be necessary, and even called immediately prior to an annual meeting. In short, the discretionary election of March 2017 to revise the declarations was not an annual election, and therefore Article 4, Section 3 does not apply. Neither the declaration nor the bylaws then in effect speak to the voting protocol for holding an election specific to revision of the declaration. The board of directors was free to conduct the election as it did, to tabulate and certify the vote of its own accord, and to certify the election without involvement of an independent auditing firm as it chose to do. Now, it might be argued that under Article 6, Section 3 of the 2011 bylaws, that the voting procedures for all elections must be the same as for the election of directors as stated in Article 4, Section 3. But Article 6, Section 3 reads, items for the agenda of the membership meeting requiring a vote of the membership shall be voted by mailed ballot as the most effective method to establish a quorum of members. The voting procedure will be the same as that for the election of directors as stated in Article 6, Section 3. So it is not true that all elections must be the same voting procedure as that for the election of directors. Only those elections stemming from, quote, an item for the agenda of the members' meeting requiring a vote, end quote, must follow those same procedures. The March 2017 election for the revision of the declaration did not stem from an item for an agenda of the members' meeting. No, the election was lawfully held at the discretion of the board. Again, neither Article 4 nor Article 6 of the bylaws applies. Finally, Ms. Alexander argues that the number of the votes cast in favor of amending the declaration fell short of the 67% required for passage. Ms. Alexander argues, quote, if we have roughly 1,100 members and all are eligible to vote, then the vote totals for the declaration revision in the minutes of April 15 is not the 62% as stated in the email below. As counted and referenced in these minutes, there was 317 for and 188 against, totaling 505 votes. Additionally, the requirement according to the Texas Property Code 209-0041H is no less than 67% of voting members. Once again, Ms. Alexander failed to cite the applicable law. Ms. Alexander incorrectly cited Texas Property Code 209-0041, Section H, when indeed the very next section, Section H1, is the applicable law. H1 reads, quote, if the declaration contains a lower percentage than prescribed by Section H, the percentage in the declaration controls. As previously stated, amendments to the declaration require, quote, the affirmative vote of a majority of the membership votes cast. Thus, the 62% of the votes cast in favor of the revision, as counted, prevailed. In conclusion, Ms. Alexander is in every respect wrong. The current president and former members of the board were in every respect correct. And finally, the revised declaration of protected restrictions approved in March 27 is in every respect valid. I will remind you that if there was to be a challenge of the vote, it had to occur within 15 days of that vote being taken. And I will remind you that Ms. Alexander has failed to follow proper protocol to dispute the declarations. Now, in my report, I would also say to you a couple of things. There has been some discussion and concern about the motel door installations. Well, the best I can say then is that the
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Before you move to another topic, what is the proper protocol for?
I'd like to finish
doing
my
that?
report and then I'll take questions, please.
All right.
All right. The motel door installations, well, they have not been done yet, and there's a number of reasons why that is. There's first of all the fact that we rely upon volunteerism to get that done. Secondly, we determined that it was not a good idea to try to change those doors out during the holiday season when it was heavily booked. The doors are going to be installed just as soon as we can. I don't think it will be very long from now, although I can't give a precise date. There's other concerns about the doors are out in the weather and they are rusting. Well, they are exterior doors, and I believe Mr. Sullivan took a look-see, and there's no rust on those doors, is there, Mr. Sullivan?
After that allegation first surfaced I did go down there and inspect all the frames there, and I could detect no rust anywhere. And as you say, these, I hope they don't, because these doors are gonna be outside when they're installed. They're, as you say, exterior doors.
So they'll get done, folks. Just please be patient. We're going to get them done. Now, with respect to the hailstorm that recently occurred, just the day after it occurred, I was on the phone to the insurance company. The insurance adjuster has been here. He's still here. He has a lot of roofs to look at, and there are preliminary reports are that there are some roofs that are going to have to be replaced. I was asked about the deer harvest report. Now, understand that when we are reporting on what our deer harvest is bringing in, we actually don't follow the fiscal year. We begin our deer hunting season August the 1st, and then it runs through March. Last year, at this time, there was some $74,660 collected. This year, as of this time, we're up to about $85,000, actually $85,327 was my calculation. So we're doing about $10,000 better this year than we did last year, and I'm hoping that that trend continues. The rest of this is incidental, so I'll go ahead now, if you'd like to take questions.
Okay. So I'm going to work backwards since that's what I just heard. So where in our financial report was that $10,000 surplus from the deer harvest reflected? Because what I saw says $50,000.
I just explained that we're not, when we're referring to our deer harvest, our season, it begins with August the 1st and continues on through March. What you're looking at are numbers reported for the fiscal year.
Okay, so what I see is October to December,
yes.
Right? And so we're missing 2 extra months. So it's 84,000 is what it is?
85, I think.
85,327 is what was stated.
Okay. Okay. For the hailstorm, the roofs needing to be replaced, how is the warranty from Elite affected, or is there any?
It does come into play, and we'll sort all that out once we get the reports from the insurance adjuster.
Okay. And then for the doors, when we had the emergency meeting to get additional funding to pay for the doors, we asked who was installing the doors, and we were told, we the board, we were told that maintenance was installing the doors. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I just heard you say is that you're looking for volunteers to install the doors. Is that correct?
I did not say we're looking for them. I said we're relying on volunteerism to do that.
So does that mean you're looking for volunteers to help install doors?
No, Mr. Hope, I'm relying on Mr. Hope, who is a volunteer and actually makes a contribution to the fort through his efforts on these doors. Yes, he's done a sizable contribution to getting these doors ordered and the proper locks and the system, etc. I have to rely on his availability. He does have a job outside of this one, although this one takes up an awful lot of his time. So yes, I'm relying upon volunteerism, the volunteerism of Mr. Hope, and for that matter, anybody else who wants to come and help can certainly do. I know that there was some complaining about that at the council, community council. Step up. Instead of complaining, step up and come and help us. That would be great.
Okay, so I'm confused, so please bear with me as I repeat what I think I just heard.
Mm-hmm.
So we were told maintenance is going to install them, correct?
Maintenance is going to install,
okay.
Yes.
But you're waiting for a volunteer who has offered their time to also assist to come assist doing that as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're opening the door for anyone who wants to help put the doors in to come assist with that as well.
Sure.
But it's contingent upon the board members' availability to do that.
Yes,
Okay.
and
Not
not
all
all of
of
that,
it.
because there's also the fact that we have 5 maintenance people, and this job has to be included in that.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that the reservations, when we have some massive reservations being made to two retreats in February. It's going to make it very difficult for us to get these doors done. There's a lot that comes into it. It's not just, let's go put the doors up. There's much more involved.
Okay, thank you for that. And then back to the original thing, or the first topic, what is the proper protocol if someone has a grievance? And also, where does it say that you have to challenge a vote or something the board does within 15 days?
In the declarations.
And then what's the proper protocol?
Also in the declaration.
Okay, thanks. I think I had another question for you too. Oh, I do have some other questions, sorry. With the government shutdown, for our residents who are affected by this, the government employees, are we deferring assessments and deferring late payments on assessments?
As a board member, have you made that motion? That's the only way that can happen.
Okay, well, I thought that would be a management issue, but okay, we'll have to talk about whether or not we need to do that. And I would like to see the current facility price list, along with that verbiage that we had talked about for the member rental and free use of those facilities. And did you address the swim park picnic tables?
That's been repaired.
It has been repaired, okay. Well, I just want to be sure I can answer these concerns. And do you have an update on the TV and internet services for the RV park?
No, that'll have to be taken up with the board of directors in their 10-year plan. That's a significant cost to the association, and the board will have to consider that.
Okay. I thought when we switched to DirecTV, part of that was that they were going to be getting TV services at the RV park.
It did not include the full park, no.
Okay.
That was for the motel.
Okay.
Primarily
Okay.
for the motel. We
Okay.
did put one at their assembly room there, yes.
Oh, so like the common area room. Right. How many departments do we have in the association or in the management?
I have to count them. That's not a number I carry in my head. I have to count them.
Okay. Well,
Why is that question asked?
well, because I mean, you've said several times that things have kind of shifted and moved, and actually when we get to that action item, I'll talk about it a little bit more. But I would still like to see a list of the positions we have with the salaries as well as the current organizational chart that
I'll do
depicts
that
our...
when the board tells me to do that.
Oh, so the board needs to tell you to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I believe the attorney has argued against that.
And that was it. Sorry, thanks.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion. I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Should also be noted that the approval of the minutes
Minutes
was
have been taken out of it.
taken out.
The approval.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor? Passes unanimously. The next item is headed President's Address. Mrs. Alexander, in her allegations and charges, requested a public response and apology from myself and any other board members that were involved in the revision of the declaration in 2017. So at her request, I will provide her that public response. She also wants a public apology that will not be forthcoming. And as she submitted a written prepared statement, I have put together in comparison, very brief statement. I did not go into all the technicalities that could be used to refute any of her possible claims, which I do have here. But what I want to state here today is this. This boils down to a claim by Mrs. Alexander that the revised declaration vote of approval by the membership was counted by the board of directors instead of an independent auditing firm, as she claims was required by our bylaws. That cost, by the way, at that time would have been $5,000 to you, the members, to have that tabulated and counted. Since then, we've been able to find someone that does it for considerably less, but that's what existed at the time. That requirement, contrary to Alexander's claim, is not stated in the bylaws, it's not stated in the declaration, and it's not stated in Property Code 209. It is simply based on Mrs. Alexander's interpretation of the bylaws. Alexander's supporting documents, as I mentioned earlier, consist of a partial section of the law which is negated by the complete statute. That's Property Code 209.0041, subsection H and subsection H1. The declaration being voted on, not the version in effect at the time, is the declaration she submits. It really doesn't matter because both declarations in effect say the same. She also put forth the 2018 version of the bylaws, which hardly applied in 2017, seeing they didn't even exist then. And those bylaws are somewhat similar. This, to me, is a very basic, simple matter. And I appreciate the very long, complicated, and convincing legal argument put forth by our executive officer. But the declaration empowers the board of directors to, and I quote, at its discretion, to amend the declaration with the approval of a majority of the membership votes cast. There are no additional requirements. The declaration in two places states the same thing, and it is the only place where amendment of the declaration is specifically referred to. No other place in the Property Code 209, in the bylaws, or in the declaration is there any reference to amending that declaration. The declaration trumps the bylaws, as I think most of us are aware of by now. And the bylaws cannot place more onerous conditions on the process than those imposed by the declaration. The declaration, among our documents, is the last word. And it says, at its discretion, the board can amend that to those declarations with a majority vote of the membership votes cast. It does not require that we spend $5,000 and have an auditing firm count those votes. Those votes, that vote count was done with notice to all the members. They were all invited to attend and observe the count. There were some that did. The votes were counted twice. They were put in stacks of 5 stacks. Each director counted one and then traded with another director, and they were recounted again. This was all in front of anyone that wanted to observe to ensure their accuracy. This attempt to discredit our declaration and the directors and committee members who expended many hours of hard work to bring our declaration up to date and in compliance with the law is absolutely uncalled for. And may I remind everyone that the people that did this are volunteers. They do not receive a paycheck. The suggestion that I attempted to sweep it under the rug is ludicrous. My stolen email, probably obtained when my email was hacked, published by Alexander, shows that I was the one who brought the issue to the full board for discussion and a decision. When that decision was made, I, unlike some situations today, followed our code of ethics and stood by the board's decision. and I still do. I sincerely hope this was not a first step in a plan to dissolve the association, as has been suggested by some, and some that are actually candidates in the next election. The only apology needed here, in my opinion, is from Alexander to the membership and the past board she has wrongly defamed. That concludes my remarks, and as far as I'm concerned, this is a closed item, even though I still received a very hostile email from Mrs. Alexander at 8:19 last night. Thank you. Committee reports. Airport. No one from the airport?
My name's Stan Martin. I'm on the airport committee. We had a meeting this week, and part of our, during that meeting, we initiated a desire to have a fly-in and a host pilots weekend on April the 26th. Fly-ins are a recruitment tool that we're trying to use to get new pilots out here to the fort and possibly buy memberships and property. During this fly-in, we plan to work with the Historical Society to include a historical tour. As long as the weather supports us, we can expect a fairly large crowd of pilots from around Texas. Also, during that time frame on April the 27th, from 1 to 3 p.m., we will be hosting an open house at the airport hangar. Second item, we voted to replace Mr. Larry McNerlin on the airport committee with Mr. Chris Perkins. Larry has, as a lot of people know, has been going through some health issues. He's a longtime aviation enthusiast who's given a lot of time and invested countless hours and dollars to the betterment of the airport. We're unhappy to report that his health is taking a large decline and he's no longer able to participate in the airport or on the airport committee. He's not available to give us a letter of resignation because he's been moved to an assisted living facility in Minnesota, or is in the process thereof. Tonight on the on January the 9th, when we had our meeting, the airport committee unanimously voted to have Mr. Chris Perkins take Larry's place on the committee, and we're asking the board to officially appoint him to this committee. This requires y'all's vote. Mr. Perkins lives full-time on the fort and has been here for over 7 years. He works full-time as a U.S. Air Force pilot, teaching flight instruction at Laughlin Air Force Base, and donates countless hours to the maintenance as well as invests thousands of dollars a year at the betterment of the airport. He and his wife own 2 aircraft and fly out of the airport fairly regularly. He has a master's degree in aviation safety management, and he would be, and he is, a great fit and a great asset to the committee. And he's very much up to date on procedures within the aviation community. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, thank you. I have one. I'm just curious, is Mr. Perkins in the active Air Force, or is he a civilian employee in that position?
My understanding, Mr. Perkins is a reservist pilot, a major in the Air Force, and the reserves at Laughlin. He's now, I guess, more permanent party as opposed to being on a transition role is what they do with the regular Air Force folks.
Okay, thank you very much. Architectural Committee? Anyone from the Architectural Committee to step forward? Is someone kidnapped Joel?
I think he had a doctor's appointment
All right.
today.
Thank you. We'll pass for now. The election committee, is there anything to report there?
Things I want to go over now rather than during item 14. We are going to draw for, step on your own foot. We are going to draw for ballot positions today, and it's all set up to go. I did want to go over a couple of things just to assure the membership and the board that we followed all the rules. All the 7 candidates did submit their candidate data sheets by 5 o'clock on January 2nd. And I want to thank them all because they all were the bios were all 250 words or less, which we greatly appreciate because there was a big misunderstanding last year about that. And it was a mess. Thank you for keeping it to 250. We did verify all 7 candidates are property owners as required by 209 and our governing documents. One thing I want to stress with the candidates is that during your instruction sheet, it said each candidate were required to supply 2 representatives to assist the election committee with the mailing. This is extremely important. Last year we had assistants show up and work for 15 minutes and say, I'm out of here. So please pick 2 people that will actually stay the entire day, or if they have to leave, you bring in a 3rd substitute for that person, because we really want to get the ballots mailed that same day. And it's going to be especially important because we have a change. I also have the election cycle dates, which I gave each one of you, and there's one for each of the candidates up here on the table. And we want to post them both at Community Council and with the Keenan County Post. However, I was only made aware the day before yesterday. I assume all you guys can hear me, right? Okay. I was only made aware the day before yesterday that our Pitney Bowes contract is expiring, or is expired, and that we are going to not renew the Pitney Bowes postage meter contract. Instead, we're going to obtain a license, whatever they call it.
Permit.
Permit, thank you. A permit for first-class mail bulk that, you've all seen the envelopes with the postage on it, postage prepaid. Okay, that. We have a month before ballots go out, so we're going to be waiting to see that.
That's not a done deal yet, but
Yeah.
we're looking at that.
Right, not a done deal. And it may be required that we go do it the old-fashioned way, stamps. Hopefully not, because that is really a time-consuming process, having been through it both as board secretary and as volunteer. So that's why it's really important that when you pick 2 people to come and help, that they can stay for the entire day, because it could be a long day depending on what we have to do with postage. Let's see. Also for the 7 candidates, Christina has volunteered to take your photographs for the brochure that goes with the ballot after the meeting today. So if you can stay, she can get that done and they can start working on putting the brochure together along with the ballots. Okay, let's see. I think that's all I have, at least for my report, and when this comes up as an agenda item, we will address this up here. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Sandy, who do we need to tell who our envelope stuffers are?
You need to, or you can tell me, or you can tell any of the election committee.
Election committee.
Yes, you can email me, you can
Email me too.
you can email the secretary who is the monitor for the election, okay? Or any of the election committee members. But we need to have that before the date where we mail. And mailing list, I will be doing mailing on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day.
I'll be bringing chocolate.
Maria's bringing chocolate. Yes.
Just a quick question. In the event that the contract for the mailing service doesn't get finished out, is our post office not capable of doing the bulk postage for you?
They,
That's what we're looking into.
we're looking into that, but in the past, they have simply frowned on it because what we have are, I don't know what the count is.
The postmaster has been very, very cooperative in all of this. We'll see
Okay.
how it shakes out.
Yeah, in the past, they did not want to do that because, we're sending out 1,000. We got trays, like 5 or 6 trays of that.
Right.
And our post office is very small and very small number of employees. So Richard is working on this, but we have a month to get this figured out before the ballots go out. The ballots, we're going to, the election committee is going to fold the ballots, the resumes, and count all the envelopes, make sure everybody's in there, matching them to the list. And then on the 14th, we're going to mail them. And if for some reason we cannot get them done, then they're going to go to the security chief to be locked up overnight so we can finish it the next day. We have no choice but to do that. So that should take care of it. We're hoping we have all this worked out, so it's a matter of just taking them over there, sending them through. Okay? Any other questions from the board? Or? Okay. And again, Maria is the secretary of the board, is the monitor for elections, so tracks down. Or you can just simply leave it at the administration desk and we'll get it. Just make sure that you direct it to the election committee. Okay? And then make sure they show up. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Equine Committee.
Is it okay if I simply say that at this point in time, the Equine Committee does not have a report?
That's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
That takes us to the Golf Committee.
The golf committee did meet the last couple of weeks ago. There will be a new flyer going out. Christina, could you also put that on the dispatch? Christina is also making another sheet of paper. These will be, the labels are made to send it out to over right at 100 courses within a 100-mile radius of Bracketville. The labels are made. We're just waiting on the documentation and the flyer. I think we've already got it supposedly. So those will be going out. Donation sheets have been sent to everybody that donated last year. At this point in time, I will no longer be doing any report for the golf committee. If they can have somebody here, then that's their responsibility to have somebody. But this is the biggest fundraiser for the golf course, and it does bring in a lot of money on Green Feast Trail to the fort. They will be looking for some volunteers. They need office help. They'll need people on the course, and they will also need people to help with the catered meal. So if you want to volunteer, take it to any of the golf committee or go down to the pro shop and they can start a list down at the pro shop of volunteers and what you would like to volunteer for. That's pretty much all I've got on the golf course.
I have a question. And it might be a question more directed at Mr. Lawrence, but last month I had asked about that mud proposal and if it had gone anywhere, and then Mr. Lawrence indicated that they did meet. But I noticed when I was out on my run that at the back of the golf course, between some homes, there's like a ditch full of water. Has there been water being put onto that golf course from some sort of, or how would we have standing water in the ditch?
Just because it rained.
Well, it didn't rain that much.
Behind my house, I've had water there for probably 2 months now, and normally we don't. So, yeah. The ground becomes saturated. When it does rain, it doesn't go anywhere.
Well, I do understand how that works when it rains, but the other thing that kind of compounded me wanting to ask about it again is that when we were flying, I noticed that there's some land being cleared around where the ponds are. So it just made me wonder if something had progressed with that, but you're kind of alluding that it hasn't. So
no, I have not alluded that at all. Yes, there have been some advances. They are looking at some other options. One of those options is to build a pond out at the plant.
okay.
But again, I don't know mud's every move, so.
Well, but is that our property that they're clearing, or is that city property?
I haven't been out there to see property being cleared. I don't know what you're talking about in that regard.
Okay.
But I'm assuming if they're,
I believe
there
there's
was also
27
discussion.
acres out there that belongs to.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
fenced, and
Yeah, I hadn't been down
yeah,
there.
they're also talking about an irrigation system as well, so.
Belongs to the city, I think.
I'm just asking.
But yeah, the mud is now looking at other options besides just the golf course. One of those being a pond at the facility.
I'm sorry, but the questions are going to have to wait until the 15-minute member discussion.
Address your concern about the water on the golf course. It's broken sprinkler heads.
No, broken sprinkler heads.
So,
The water's still
we're gonna
running.
have 2 periods for members' input and discussion, one ahead of the action items and one at the end of the meeting like we used to have. So you have 2 different chances to share with us your concerns. Appreciate that. All right, Preservation Committee.
Good morning. I have 2 items to report on, the same 2 that reported on for the last 2 or 3 months. The first one is the awning over Dickman Hall. After, as I reported last month, multiple posts in the paper and my calling and going face to face with different contractors, we came up with one bid from a local contractor. We opened that bid last week, took a look at it. It was brought to our attention that we needed to use the existing downspouts and gutters because they are copper or copper plated, and that goes along with the historic part of the building. So I contacted the contractor and asked him if he could tie into those 2 items. He said yes, he could, and that he could also get a copper plated gutter for the front of the awning that he has planned on. So that should be good to go. He's going to give me a changed estimate. Hopefully I'll receive that today. Once I get that, then I'll send it out to the Historic Building Committee for their vote. If they approve it, then I will submit it through Ms. Isaacs, who's our liaison, for your approval or non-approval. And then from there, if you approve it, then it'll go back to the Texas Historical Commission, who will give us a thumbs up or down. They had 3 questions, and I think we will be able to answer those 3 questions for them. So hopefully they'll give us a thumbs up, but that could take anywhere from 30 to 60 days. So that's just the way it goes. Nothing we can do about that. The other item is the windows on the rear portion of Seminole Hall. We had a local contractor take a look at it just a couple of days ago. We gave him the information that would be required for a bid on those windows. We've also had interest from 2 companies in San Antonio. So we've sent them information about what would be required in the basic bid, and so now we're just waiting for them to come back. We're going to extend the original date for submittal from 17 January to at least to the end of this month, and possibly even the first week, into the first week of February, so we can give them plenty of time to take a look at it. But that's pretty much where we stand now. We're just looking to receive bids on Seminole Hall. Any questions?
I got an email from you about submitting a work order for the roof of Dickman Hall leaking and has been leaking for, is that something to do with the insurance?
My understanding, that has been corrected.
Oh, it has been corrected. Okay. I just remember getting it this morning, as a matter of fact, when I seen it. So I just wanted to ask you about that.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Recycling Committee.
Morning, everybody. November 28th, we sent 41 bales of cardboard and 52 of the large cartons The cardboard got us $2,066, and the cartons got us $206. After shipping and the 10% for the company, we're getting, the check is in the mail for $1,470.72. So that's, for the year, I got a summary for y'all, and for the year, we have a profit of $1,621. This was based on 45 tons of stuff that we sent, and it's not in our landfill, which is great. So, I guess, unless you have any questions, I provided this summary for each of you. So. Thanks. And what's the list? So, any questions? Anything else?
Thank you, Helena.
Sure.
Mr. Lawrence, the revenue that they get from the recycling, where is that in the revenue from our financial reporter? Where does it get put? Maybe Mr. Smallin, I don't know. I don't see a line item for it, so I don't.
There may not be a specific line item for that. It could be under other income. It could be one of the trade accounts. I'll just have to look at that to answer your question.
Okay.
I don't think it's straight, but I will get that to you.
Okay.
I'll give Mr. Lawrence the answer to that.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa, Community Council.
Good morning. Lisa B.O.D, President, Community Council. We had our annual meeting Saturday, and here's what I have for you. We showed The Grinch Stole Christmas for the third year to the Brackett School for the first through fifth graders on December 20th, and was attended by about 250 students. Students were given a brief history of the historic Post Theater and told that the theater is probably older than their grandparents are right now. Free hot chocolate and popcorn were given by Community Council and served by Allison Watkinson. The movie was also shown to the membership that same evening and was well attended with free popcorn and hot chocolate for the season. White Christmas was then shown on the 22nd. Even though we were only able to have one showing, we did have good attendance for that, and free popcorn and hot chocolate was shown for that too, so if y'all didn't come, you missed it. After checking the Old Quarry Society schedule, it has been decided that we will hold our movies going forward on the second Saturday of the month, not only to have a consistent movie night, but to also have the least impact to the quarry's rehearsals, performances, and such. Excuse me. Solo, a Star Wars movie, was shown this last Saturday, and we had about 60 people in attendance between both showings. We are still in need of volunteers if we are to continue movie night. Please contact us if you're interested or have any questions. You can message us from our Facebook page, Fort Clark Springs Community Council, or you can email me at purpleveil@gmail.com. Fort Clark Days 2020, we have formed the new committee, and our chairperson will be Sandra Vance. If you'll just wave your hand there. An informational meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 12th at 6:30 p.m. in the Adult Center. You can reach her with questions or to volunteer at sandravance@ymail.com or sandravance@ymail.com. You can sign up today in the back or attend the meeting. And you can also find information for Fort Clark Days on the fortclarkdays.org website. We formed an ad hoc committee for scholarships for college for the Brackett high schoolers. And they'll be looking at the scholarship application and processes and revamping it and working with the school to get applicants. Committee members are Phyllis Giblin, Carol Stanfield, and Chuck Fields. Kathy Warm will be the Community Council representative to the committee. I just wanted to say a thing about the dispatch. We were very disappointed that our dispatch communication regarding our past movie and annual meeting did not go out until 6:25 on Friday, January 11th, the night before our annual meeting and less than 24 hours before our movie. Even though I put in a request earlier the week for the movie and on Monday for the annual meeting. We would just like to know what is the time frame that is needed in order for us to get these events in the dispatch in a timely manner. Is it possible to put out a dispatch each week of events that are happening in addition to like board dispatches and information? So if I could get an answer to that at some point. Member concerns. I would like to note, the members have concerns. They're not complaining, which I keep hearing. There was a lengthy discussion on work orders, and we were informed by a board member present that we should be using the work order email instead of coming into the office, that this was the best way to track orders. We thank you for adding the work order link back into the dispatch because it had been missing, and we saw that in the last dispatch. We would ask that the office acknowledge the work orders that come in and have been received, and that someone has looked at it and who has been tasked and the time frame for completion. If it's not going to be done, why? Because if we're going to send them in email, you just don't know. Did it go to cyberspace? This is our recommendation from listening to the members. They don't know they're being heard. People need validation and that they are being heard and recognized. The other concerns, one of which was addressed, is the motel doors, the installation and concerns there. There was requests for the top 5 priorities that maintenance is working on or is slating to be done. Members would also like to know job descriptions, who they need to go to, what is, with the admin office and what their positions are. Members would also like to see a report from the RV park and the golf course at the board meetings. If you are not discussing any of these items today, we would like to formally request that these items be added to the agenda next month so we can get a report on them. As I've stated above, they need to know they're being heard and their concerns and questions are recognized and responded to. They're not just complaining. They just want to know. They just want information. The candidate forum has been set for Saturday, February 9th, 9:30 a.m. The format has been set and the candidates will, we'll be getting that format today. I have a copy, a hard copy today if anybody would like it. And then we'll post it to the membership.
What day?
February 9th, 9:30 a.m.
Where?
The Post Theater. And the last thing we have is we held our annual elections, and the following members have been voted on to the board. Steve Giblin is our new vice president. Jennifer Link is our treasurer, and will serve a 1-year term since Allison was filling in under duress for 1 year. Kathy Warren was reelected as secretary. And I just want to thank them all for stepping forward. And that is the end of my report. If anybody has any questions.
Lisa, could we or the executive officer have a copy of that report so that we know what all the various items are that you want us to have on the agenda or respond to?
Sure. I don't have, I can just email, can I just email it to you all? I don't have an extra copy. Is that
I'm okay with an email.
An email.
I think you can probably have someone here make, there's someone
Oh, look, there's
waiting
copy
around,
there.
we'll make a copy for you probably.
Okay.
That will take care of it.
Any?
I do have a question. This is throwing it out there. Are we going to be recording the candidate forum and posting that on our YouTube channel?
I haven't.
I'm looking around the
I haven't
room.
requested that yet. I would like that to happen, but I haven't requested that from admin yet.
Okay. Is that something that we can do?
If that's what the board wants to do, but this is a function of the community council, is it not?
It is, but it is for candidates for the board and.
But you have to answer the question whether or not it's going to be recorded, yes?
Do you want it?
Yes, that's what I said. I'm sorry. That yes, that would be my request. I just haven't done so yet.
And then if you'll provide that for the YouTube, we can see to it that that gets put on there.
Yes,
Oh, so you're saying that community council can record it?
It's their operation, yes.
Right, but I was going to request, I don't have equipment, I was going to request, I haven't done so yet, that, like it's recorded here, if it could be recorded for the board, with your equipment.
I don't have any problem with that at all.
Okay. I just
I
haven't
don't either. I'm just
I'm not there
curious.
yet, in my process
Sorry.
of setting it up.
Sorry to jump the gun on that.
No,
but
that's okay.
I just think if we have it recorded and put it on YouTube, then our members can be a little more informed of the decisions they make when they vote. So I'm glad it'll be recorded.
Who's going to screen the questions? You know, I saw somewhere they're gonna be screened and picked and choose what questions.
We don't have those names yet, we have not set who the moderator and the screeners will be.
All right, thank you.
I would like to make an announcement that the board realizes we have a communication problem, and we are working on a policy. When that policy becomes reality, the membership will be let know where to send their questions, and the board will collectively decide what is addressed and what is not addressed. And that will be a policy that we will make sure everybody gets the information on.
All right. Member comments pertaining to the action items, and please keep your comments to one or the other or multiple action items that are coming up. And keep in mind that there'll be the 15-minute period reinstated for you to discuss other things after we've got through this part of the meeting. So, Kathy.
Hi, mine is always a quickie that everybody knows. This is basically for Debbie. Debbie, there are people who go golfing or anything. Who's on the golf committee now?
David Mann, Jacob Mann, Jesse Terrasses, Lou Green, and Trent Brown.
Okay, that's all I needed. Now I know who to contact. Thank you.
And you can always leave anything with the help down there, and they will get it to a golf committee member.
Oh, I deal with cash. Thank you.
No credit cards?
I had a question earlier, but I came back up just to make a suggestion on the same item, the declaration. Just for the record, I don't have any issue with what was explained legally. I take a little bit of exception with some of the anger with which it was presented, but that's a separate matter. Here's my suggestion.
It was not presented with anger.
I disagree, sir. But here's my suggestion.
You know
My
my
suggestion
feelings.
is this. I would suggest one of the board members make a motion when you're discussing the declaration to add in the requirement to have all future amendments to the declaration counted by a third party. As a member, I'm not particularly thrilled with having to spend the money, but I am very concerned that those votes are counted properly and they're counted by an independent third party. I think that's a very important part of the voting process for membership. That's my suggestion. Take it or leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a sign up.
There's still more.
Oh. You snuck up on me and I looked away. You're quick.
I may be tall, but I'm quiet. I have actually two agenda items, and one of them, because from the agenda, I couldn't tell what you wanted to add to or change the agenda. So I asked, and these two things were given to me as possibles, and I just have a short comment and we'll read it faster. Apparently to change the declaration to accommodate different meeting schedule for the architectural committee. I understand why that might be a good thing, but is that one item enough to justify the expense of sending out ballots and doing the whole thing for the declaration? The second, I heard that there was a suggestion that possibly we restore the 6-month build-out requirement on properties purchased, and this is okay, I think, as a member, if it's for a lot where a permit has been requested, 6 months to start the project. However, if it's just for a purchase of a lot, I think that's an unfair, to put that onus on the member to buy a lot and then be expected to build on it in 6 months. Some people buy it for retirement. They may not retire for 2 or 3 years, then they don't want to start building. The other one is, and I take exception to the inference that we as the prior board did anything that would be considered conspiracy, inappropriate behavior, or anything when we handled the ballot measure for the last declaration. As a member and a former director, I fully support involving our HOA attorneys in revising government documents and or answering questions of how to respond to members' questions, complaints, or challenges. However, referring our Declaration of Protective Restrictions filed March 2017 to attorneys again is inappropriate. Our attorneys at the time were heavily involved in revising the declaration to conform to state and federal law. Our attorneys met with the board in person, by teleconference, through written correspondence and email. There's no need for another legal review and subsequent legal fees. And the bylaws were subsequently revised to conform to the declaration. And all of our efforts by the board to mail ballots, to count them, were open to every single member who wanted to come to watch us. And it was a thoroughly open event. People were given plenty of notice to come. Not even that many people showed up. So I do take offense to any suggestion that that 5-member board acted in any way irresponsibly.
Thank you.
Good morning, all. I am Kim Van Ort, from the president of the Horse Club. I'm up here for the facility use agreement with the Cavalry Stables. What I passed out to you all is a list of why it would be beneficial for the board to continue to have a usage agreement with the Horse Club. I have 15 items on there. Mr. Sullivan, there should be a few more to keep passing down. The Horse Club desires to honor the historical heritage of the equines at Fort Clark Springs. Our mission is to support, encourage, and promote the ongoing and continued presence of equine and equine-related activities on Fort Clark Springs through club membership. And then I have my list of things that we do that the fort would end up taking over. Like right now, we maintain the stables by mowing, weed eating, and picking up the grounds. We facilitate the removal of the manure and maintain the equipment to do so. We purchase the necessary types and amounts of aggregate material for maintenance of the stall turnouts. The stall turnouts meaning those wired pens off of each individual stall. We maintain and complete necessary repairs of the stable plumbing. We repair like the leaking faucets, we'll replace worn out hoses, and that's all done by the Horse Club members volunteering to do it. We also maintain the stable lighting, the interior and exterior, both the interior and exterior electrical. We purchase and replace the light bulbs and fixtures that have gone bad. Again, that is done by Horse Club members volunteering their time to go through and do that. The only thing we have done in the past is ask maintenance to come up with their ladder, because we do have some light fixtures that we cannot reach with our ladders. So then they come and help us do that, but we do provide the light bulbs for that. I'm not going to read all of them because, as you can see, I have 15 items on here. Some other beneficial things would be the fort will not have to pay an employee a salary or benefits to manage the stables. The Horse Club would continue to do that. The fort would not have to worry about assigning the tack stalls, the tack rooms, the feed rooms, the tack lockers. That would be still the Horse Club's responsibility if they continue to have the usage agreement. The fort would not have to worry about taking on the complaints of members in the barn and coming up with the resolutions. That again will be the sole responsibility of the Horse Club as long as we have that usage agreement. Do you all have any questions?
So you're saying the Horse Club prefers to be a club in an agreement with the fort as
Yes.
opposed to an individual being in an agreement with the fort,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Okay, thanks. I wish you would have sent this prior, but...
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Ann Barron, please. You're on the list.
didn't know that there was going to be as much information coming before I did all this work that I did. But I'm just going to reiterate very quickly our concern about our declaration of protected restrictions being valid. 2 documents under the government provisions, number 6, little f, say that the board has the right to, let me get my book so I can read it exactly. You've already heard it once, you're hearing it again. The board has the power at its discretion to amend the declaration if approved by the affirmative vote of a majority of the votes cast by lot owner memberships entitled to vote. And so the main word here is majority. It is in the declaration from that was amended in 2011. Recording document number 66938 at Kenny County Clerks. This is the one that was revised in March 2017, document 71752, recorded in Kenny County. They both say exactly the same thing as far as a majority is concerned. I'm going to do this quickly. I won't talk in detail since they have already done so. We have approximately 1,750 lot owner voting memberships. The results were 317 yeses and 188 noes for a total of 505 votes. The votes cast were 62% yes. This was more than a majority for amending. Mrs. Alexander's question was, why did the association fail to correct the mistake? There was nothing to correct. I found nowhere a requirement for a vote to amend the declaration be tabulated by an independent auditing firm. No director candidates were involved. No director elections were held in 2017. A special meeting of the board to count the ballots was properly noticed and open to all members to observe. Mrs. Alexander believes that these issues should be publicly addressed. We are not a public entity. We are a private, non-profit corporation chartered in the state of Texas. Our board meetings are not public. Only members and guests by invitation may attend our board of directors meetings. The board of directors held a town hall meeting in October of 2018. All members are encouraged to come with their comments and questions to any future town hall meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. I think we've taken care of everyone on the signed on the sheet. Is there anyone else that has a comment on an action item? Okay. First action item is to consider a motion to send to the FCSA membership for approval proposed amendments to the revised declaration. There's 2 separate proposals by separate people. One we've heard some of already, the proposal to relax the number of meetings that the architectural committee must hold each month from 1 every week to twice a month. And the second one would be an amendment brought forth by Treasurer Isaacs. And would you like to present that, Debbie?
My proposal on adding back in the lot option pool, and it's not by any lot that is bought. What that was for, when somebody turned in a charter membership to lot up, the provision was they had to start building within 6 months. And so a charter membership that's really the only one that has the right to lot up. And the 6-month thing was because when they finally turn that in or lot up to a real lot, then the fort would start getting the residential assessment off of it. But once they turn in this paper to lot up, then now they can turn those in, go out here and get whatever lot and don't have to perform on it for years. But that was the purpose of a charter membership, is once you decided you were gonna retire, you lotted up to a real lot, and then you had to start your construction within 6 months. That was taken out of the declarations. It's not anybody that buys a lot, because you can go out and buy a lot yourself. The only provision was for charter memberships turning them in when they finally decided to build. And I think that really should be put back into the declarations. Because now you can turn in a charter membership and it can sit there for 10 years before you do anything with it. And that's just that's the reasoning I've got behind this.
So, this only requires those people lotting up.
Yes, that's what
If I go down and buy a lot there, I don't have
no,
to.
you never have had to. It was only when turning in a charter membership to lot up when you finally decide to build.
It seems to me, reading the old verbiage here, is that you're correct. So, it says.
I mean, it was there for a protection for Fort Clark, that once you lotted up, that property would finally have to be mowed and cleaned up and some type of construction started within 6 months of actually lotting up.
Maybe I should read this as it's actually stated.
Okay.
Under Part 9, Number 2, the following subsection A shall be included. A written notification to the board of the member's desire to exchange a non-performance lot for a performance shall state, and then it goes into the member of unconditional agreement to build in that. So, any comments? Anyone have comments on both amendments?
Well, for the one that Ms. Isaacs brings up, the verbiage that I'm reading doesn't tell me that this is for charter memberships.
It says trading a non-performance lot. It made me couldn't say.
Right, but it doesn't say it's a charter membership, because I mean, I don't know, I have no idea.
It was probably in the original in the declarations before it was amended.
Okay.
You're looking at the newest declaration, I believe. That statement was taken out of the new declaration.
So, but the old one that you want to add does not say a charter membership. It says a non-performance lot. So you could say a non-performance lot or charter membership. They want to.
The original protection was for the charter lot ups, is what it was for.
So I guess I kind of share the same concern with Ms. Hagan with the way it's written. It's saying that, you know, you should be able to buy a property and build on it and at your discretion when you are ready to do that.
Ready to buy a lot.
But what happens if there's a lot that you want that's available today, but you don't know if it's going to be available in 10 years, but you're not retiring for 10 years and you want to come back and build on that? What I would say, though, is that maybe we can put verbiage that says that you need to at least clean it up so it doesn't look like there's it's unpleasant to the eye. But I mean, this doesn't tell me that this is specifically for charter members. I have them right here. I'm looking for that paragraph.
Oh, you mean the old ones that had this in?
Yes.
No, I don't have those.
I have them. I'm going to look right now.
But I think because in our proposed amendment is what we want to look at, that's what counts.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
verbiage.
Right.
Not what we had.
And that verbiage, Debbie, you remember when you and I were working on this, that we drew that verbiage straight from the previous declaration.
Yeah. But I could see where we could add where it says written notification to the board of the member's desire to exchange a non-performance lot for a performance lot shall, after desire to exchange a non-performance lot or charter membership for a performance lot, would seem to take care of it. Because you have some people with charter memberships that are okay to lot up, but they don't have a lot attached to them. They never selected one of these.
You make a good point there. So actually, could we desire to exchange a charter membership or non-performance lot?
Yes.
And/or.
and/or non-performance lot.
But it does not pertain to just coming up here and you wanting to buy a Fort Clark lot. That doesn't have to be there.
Just needed.
Yeah, I was gonna say the explanation
Yeah.
is what we need.
I want you to make sure that's not against the 209 law,
Yeah.
state law, before you actually.
No, the property code 209 would not apply to this.
But we're no longer selling charter memberships or Never Never Land lots out here anymore.
Look
So,
under part 9, 2.
Sandra,
Okay, as Myrna and Ann and all of us were heavily involved in this, and the reason that we took that out of there, if you will recall, is because we wanted to encourage
These are
charter
not two-
members to
these are
lot
not
up.
2011, these are the
And by
99,
requiring
1999.
them to build within 6 months is kind of a deterrent to wanting to lot up.
it is.
Okay, because we no longer sell charters because we can't do that anymore by state law. So this was going to hopefully encourage people to go ahead and lot up from their charter rather than to hang on to the charter. And that was the reason that we took that language out of the declaration, to take that pressure off of people who wanted a property but weren't ready to go and have a charter. So I just wanted to explain what the reasoning was for taking it
then
out.
why was the lot option pool done away with? Because in documentation elsewhere, it also stated that not everybody who had a non-performing lot there may not be lots available for those people.
No, there was no guarantee there'd be a lot
So again,
available.
we've got every lot we've got out there that somebody can opt up on a lot, but now they're not required to even start building on them.
I think you can create a pool without changing the declaration.
I was about to say, why can't we have the pool but not be in the declaration?
I think you can do that.
I don't know, I just was looking through the declarations and it was brought to my attention that that's when you bought a charter membership, so when you retired, you could lot up to a performing lot. But then the whole lot pool was done away with. So I'm sitting here with something I've had for 40 years, probably some of them have. And now because you've opened that up, they can go out here and get your most desirable lot, because we can't stop them from any lot Fort Clark owns right now, from getting those 2-acre lots or anything else. If it's really a platted lot and it could be built on, then you have now let somebody have a $3,500 lot, or I think they're all still $3,500 basically.
Yeah.
But again, that was a protection to get more members, residential members here, and they had to build within 6 months' time.
Different subject though than the build out requirement.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Ms. Isaac, so is the concern more of the lot pool? Or is it more that we're getting people that are lotting up that aren't building in an appropriate amount of
That
time?
aren't building, and again, the Ford is not getting the residential within the 6-month period of getting these lots. That was a protection for Fort Clark when the whole.
Why are they not getting?
Because until you have a
Because you don't have to.
residential,
No longer, you don't have to build within 6 months.
You can just
so they just pay the lot
maintain
fee.
it as an unimproved lot
Yes.
and
Yes.
just pay the membership
Yes.
Still
too.
paying the membership though, right?
Yeah, but not
But
the
only
residential.
but not the residential. That was a way for Fort Clark to start receiving
See,
more money.
the $84 a month is actually consists of
It was just a
two
question I
assessments.
Right, I
Yeah.
understand that, right, right. But you have people who have 2 lots and only pay 1 residential anyway.
Yeah,
So what's the problem? I'm not arguing, I'm just, trying to understand. If I turn in my
Charter
charter
membership.
membership and pick a lot,
Okay.
now I become a regular membership, not a charter membership, because it goes away, right?
Your fees don't change though.
Right. But if I buy 2 lots and hook up 1 water, I'm still only paying
One residential
One
and a
residential.
membership.
2
But
memberships.
you don't pay a residential till you put a water line on it.
But if supposing I'm never going to,
Then why would you let,
that's what she's saying, that's
that's
the
what I'm
problem.
saying.
That's the problem.
It was in the declarations for a reason, whatever the reason was. It had to be to encourage people to live on the fort,
Okay,
to build a
so-
house.
The question here, it sounds to me like this is gonna have to be worked and reworked,
Yeah.
and that we're not maybe ready to submit it to the membership.
Maybe not.
And then so, unless we're gonna incur some, significant additional expense, it'll probably end up having to sit until, next year's meeting, annual meeting.
But in the meantime, I mean, with this lot pool thing, I mean, what do we have to do to get a lot list like you're talking about?
I don't know, you'd
See,
have,
that's like the second part of your issue
Well,
here.
nobody could ever answer my question before as to who chose the lots that went in that pool.
that was, I never was able to find any place where there was any official resolution or motion or in any of our documents. The documents only said that they could choose from any lots available. Well, it seems to me if the lot is vacant, the Ford owns it, and it's for sale, it's available. But somewhere along the line, somebody, staff, or someone decided, oh, well, we're only gonna let them choose from these lots over here, and that gave you your pool, but I don't think it was ever done officially. It may have been, but I can't find anywhere.
Well, then we had talked about, or somebody had talked about reevaluating certain lots. So if you go out there, then are those, when you raise the rates on those lots, would they be in the same auction pool? How would you distinguish?
Well, really-
Again, it's a question I had.
Yeah, there is no
Right,
option
wrong, or
pool.
indifferent, it's still a question I had.
There is no option pool right now. Any lot the Ford owns that's available is available for them to exchange for regardless.
We need to look at that a lot
Yes.
closer.
But if you're gonna say that the lots on the golf course are worth $7,000 and everything else anywhere else is only gonna be worth 5,000 or 3,500 as it is now,
Yeah.
then
That's gonna influence what lot they choose.
that's a question I
But
have to the
we're-
board.
Yeah, what we're trying to do right now is not do that. We're trying to decide whether or not they should be allowed to lot up and not build.
Well, I'll make a motion that we put this aside and do some more, we talk about it some and then decide at a later date. But there's
Okay.
other questions out here in my mind, and I don't know if anybody out there's got a question on it, or the board even. But I think it is a concern, especially if we do raise the rates on some of our lots.
Okay. All right, that's a motion.
I'll make that as a motion to postpone it till a later date.
I'll second that. For that one. But then there's another element,
There's
right?
another element, I don't know what the other one was.
Okay, we'll have to figure out how and when we're gonna work. It's probably gonna take a workshop and some time and effort to get it right, but we wanna get it right. We don't wanna rush it through and have it wrong. So is there any other further discussion on that item?
On that item, no.
Okay, so the motion is to postpone this until a later date as determined by the board of directors.
Just that one,
That's
that
the
one.
second, that's the second suggested motion, right?
Well, that's, I'm
No, we're
trying
just
to
gonna
restate Deborah's
Restate
motion.
it, just restate it.
Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable to me.
So that
How
would be.
about the second? Is it acceptable to the second of the motion?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's postponed.
With regard to the statement regarding the architecture committee, my question is, why does the declaration have to tell a committee how often to meet? Why can't we just say, meet and process permit requests brought before the committee as required, since all of these building requests, the permits, go to the office anyway? You know, I don't understand why no other committee is dictated.
No other committee is the same as the
It's the same as-
architectural.
I understand that, but nowhere else
And that's the
in,
answer to your question.
but this is a very administrative thing that could vary.
The
For this committee.
architectural committee is created by the declaration.
And 209.
And the declaration is the only place you can change the guidelines, or not guidelines, requirements. In the declaration, that in the section that creates the architectural committee, it's required that they meet every week. that's in the declaration. And the only way you can change that is to amend the declarations, that section, to say they're not required to meet every week, they're required to meet twice a month. That's what's proposed.
Or more often at the discretion.
That's my next question. How's this gonna affect members?
One sec, Debbie. Could we please stop the conversations? It's really distracting. Thank you. Sorry, Debbie.
My next question would be, how's this gonna impact the membership if, so you've put it off for 2 weeks, they need to get started, they got contractors sitting here waiting, and then the next meeting, when they do meet, they don't have a quorum. How's that gonna affect people needing building permits?
Same as it does now when that happens.
Well,
You see, you're not reading what.
no, I've read it.
No, you're not.
But I do know that
Meet-
we've got a real problem of people getting to those meetings to do what needs to be done.
Meet and process permit requests at any other business brought before the committee twice a month or more often.
I get it.
So you're going right back to saying that they only have to meet twice a month, but they can meet 4 times a month if they desire,
Or they need to.
if it's required. If there's no permits submitted to the office for the architect committee,
But is that all
do
the
they have to come here and
architectural
meet?
does? Is that really all the
They shouldn't have
architectural
to.
does?
That's the point.
So Mike, going back to my original question, why can't we just say brought before the committee as required at the discretion of the committee?
Oh, it says it there.
But instead of telling them they have to meet twice a
Only
month.
2 times a month.
Yeah,
You're
well,
wanting to
what Maria is
specify.
suggesting, if I understand it correctly, is not to specify any particular number of meetings, just to say that they meet as required, maybe as necessary,
Yes.
and at their discretion.
Yes, sir.
It already says that.
No, sir, it doesn't. It says that they have to meet a specific number of times a
Says
month.
2 days. I would,
So instead, then it would just force the committee to be in communication with the front office and say, do we have permits to address? And then the committee can meet as required to address those permits. And they could have a long-standing weekly appointment for this boardroom still, so that they don't lose the priority in the boardroom. And then it becomes a matter of the chair calling the front office saying, do we have permits to deal with? And then that committee chair says to the committee, we do have permits, we need to meet. And then we've already got a standing time in the boardroom. And so the administration knows to tell those members to be here at that day, at the time. And that committee has already notified themselves to come to that meeting. That's all that means with as required, that they just have to communicate a little bit better. But they're not tied down to, we have to meet twice a month. Because what happens if they don't have permit requests for 3 weeks in a row? Then they sit here and they have to sit for one meeting, and they may not need to sit here.
okay, I would,
I got another question. I do have another question, I'm sorry.
you're right.
So does not the architectural go around once a month or something and see the violations of the mowing, the trash, and stuff in the units? Who does that?
No.
The architectural does not do that.
Well, first of all, they have no control over the common ground.
But they could bring it to somebody's attention as architectural or something.
For
What is that
residential,
process?
like, this is residential.
The residential areas, exactly.
Okay. Some of the members
You're
may
saying
do
yes.
that, but they're not, the members of the committee are not required, nor is the committee required to do that.
No, it's not a requirement, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right, it's a personal issue that some of us go around, look at properties.
Well, there's been a mattress and a box spring over in Unit 15 that's been there for way over a month.
Well,
And trash has been out there, and it's just, who's responsible? Is it mine as a member to bring that up to you as management?
You can.
To me, architectural should be going through once in a while and making a report
Okay,
to.
but what we're trying to deal with now, if we can at least try to get through some of this, is this amendment, which doesn't have anything to do with what the duties and requirements of the architectural committee. It only has to do with when they meet. And if we could get through that and then do whatever you want on the rest, fine. But right now, I would propose to change this amendment to say, meet and process permit requests and any other business brought before the committee as necessary or at their discretion, more often at their discretion.
That sounds good to me.
All right, can I have a motion to present this to the membership for approval so we can get it out with this election? Do you think we can still do that, Richard?
Yes.
We can get that as a ballot question so we can go out this time. We don't have to spend $1,000 on mailing to do it separately. Okay, I'll second. No, I can't second.
I'll make the motion that we change the proposal to say meet and process permit requests and other business brought before the committee as necessary at the discretion of the committee.
Or at their discretion.
Or at their discretion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
That's kind of redundant,
Do we
though.
have a second? All those in favor? Okay, it passes 3-4, all those against? Oh, did you? Oh.
Yeah, because it's going to the membership for a
Yeah,
vote.
right, that's all we're
You know,
doing.
that's
The
what we're
membership
doing.
has to
The
vote
membership
on it.
has to vote on it.
All right, so that's passed. We'll have to get that together and figure out how you put it on the ballot. All right, that. Now we have consider approval of facility use agreement for the FCSA Old Calvary Stable.
I would like to maybe do this in executive session and ask the horse club to come in and talk to us first before we make this decision.
Well, you have a right to do that. It is a contract issue.
It is a contract issue.
Which has a right to go to executive session.
Is there,
I would like to do
Anyone
that.
object to that?
was there a reason why we shouldn't discuss it in open forum?
We can address it after open forum, but I would really like to hear, being Kim got up and gave this sheet of paper, and even if the equine would like to come in there and speak at the same time.
I was actually gonna propose that we table this so we could gather
We can
our thoughts on
table
this,
it.
'cause it-
I just don't know, because this contract was due in September. It's getting on now, we're into January.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's other contracts as well that fall into that purview, so.
I just really would like to hear and discuss some of the things on the proposal with who it involves.
Are you talking about this executive session? Because it's already,
Yeah, they're already here.
it's already almost noon, just so. Yeah.
No.
Well, I have a question. If there's an agreement between horse club people,
Mhm.
not members, people, individuals,
Mhm.
we have, Ford has an agreement with them, does that mean that they can't have their own horse club?
Well, that's something that also needs to be clarified. Yes, they still need a horse club.
But that's up to them to have the horse club. Is it not?
Yes.
It's not the Ford's business to have the horse club.
No.
All we're doing is using an agreement that they will follow the rules that have been proposed at a fee. If they want to get together and have a horse club, they can still do that.
Well, I don't know. I just know in the past, you normally have sat down and you talk to the group that's involved. You negotiate what's going on. Everybody gets to throw out their yays, nays, and
Well, that was done.
But I thought they
Don't
did that,
we
yeah.
have 3 agreements here?
We do.
we have not talked to anybody with the committees though. Either the equine or the horse club. We
Well-
have not actually sat down and discussed anything
Let
with
me,
them.
let me
I
suggest
don't know if you
this.
have. Have you talked to the equine with their proposal or the horse club with their proposal?
Not formally, no.
Not formally.
Would they be opposed to answering questions here, like right now?
I would like
I mean,
to
that's-
suggest, this sounds to me is gonna be a more involved and complicated issue.
I know I've talked
That
with
was
Richard
simple.
and Jim, and
Could you-
I have,
Could I please finish? That would be.
but I'm only one member down there.
Okay. Why don't we have a workshop and invite the equine committee and the horse club people who are concerned to come to that workshop and hammer this out?
I would like to do that with the equine, the horse, and the board.
I
would
agree
like
with
to
that.
do that.
I agree with that.
And we can do that workshop as we were enlightened, or at least I was enlightened by our law firm at the orientation. We do not have to provide any particular notice. I think we'd still want to throw a notice out, but we're not restricted by having to do a 72-hour notice. If it's 70 or 68 or whatever,
Tomorrow.
is okay. And also, just as a matter of
Again, I don't get to vote. I won't vote. As a member of this board and a member of that, I do not get a vote. But I
No.
just think the people involved need to have a point to where they can get their concerns out. I really do. And I'd hope every other committee we have feels that same concerns.
I would agree to that. I would like to make a motion that we move this to become a workshop in which we invite the equine committee representatives and the horse club representatives. Again, please cut down the talk over there, please, so that we can discuss this at length and come up to an agreement that is in favor of everyone's best interests.
Is there a second to Maria's?
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know if I can even vote
You
to
can
do
make
a
a
second.
second.
I think it needs to be done. I think
You second it,
our
John?
committees need to feel important in
John,
this decision.
John seconds it. All those in favor? 4 in favor, 1 recused.
I recuse myself.
Recused.
But it's not only the horse club. I would give the same respect to any committee that we have that's board appointed.
Okay. Next is authorize the executive officer to engage an independent auditing firm to tabulate and certify results of the election of directors.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just have one question. Since we're going to be adding in information about the declarations, is that going to change the cost at all?
It shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can add on there as long as they're going to do the election of the directors, they can also include the ballot question to combine with that. Is that be accepted as a friendly amendment to the motion, Bill?
Yeah.
Maria as a second.
Yes, I'll agree to that.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. All right, next is consider the appointment of Mr., I don't know if I should say Mr. Christopher Perkins or Major Perkins to the FCSA Airport Committee. So I have a motion to appoint him.
I think you skipped one.
No, we've already voted on the,
No, we did not. We did, we skipped Delta. We did. Because what we discussed at the beginning was adjusting that verbiage.
Which
And we
didn't
voted not to do that.
oh, okay, I see what
and
you're
then
saying.
you voted for formal agenda.
Rescind your part of it.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Make a motion that we accept Mr. Christopher Perkins to the airport committee.
Second?
Second it.
Do we have all in favor? Vote yes.
Okay.
I did vote yes, yes. And he is a major, so we
Yeah,
can't
I
call him major.
understand.
So
It
now,
passes unanimously.
so now will you go back to D?
Yeah.
Yes. On action item D, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the executive officer to engage in the association's law firm for the purpose of reviewing and to make recommendations for revisions of all governing documents.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, are you gonna try to find out what that's gonna cost
Yeah, oh,
membership
yeah.
before we
You
actually
betcha.
do that,
Sure.
please?
And in fact, when they suggested it, they did say that they would budget that out, so.
Okay.
And my question would be, which governing documents? The declarations, bylaws, and rules and regulations?
All.
So then, are we gonna do this a second time when the rules and regulations are revised?
Oh, we gotta do those changes.
Oh, we can include them.
Okay.
We'll just submit them with it.
With it, with
This is
the-
proposed. What do you
Proposed.
think? Yeah.
But we haven't agreed to a proposal yet for the rules and regulations.
Well, if
You want to,
when you,
We
when
postponed mine, so that'll be at a different election next year.
so it could be, an election can be done at any time.
Okay.
It
So-
can be done in October when you send out your other
so
coupons
the,
and things.
I would like to just be specific and say declarations and bylaws.
Oh, but there's so much more.
So,
And there's a long list of them that the attorneys have asked us to consider.
They did
I would
that.
recommend
Well, I
to you
saw the
that we
letter,
just simply
yeah.
say all governing documents, and we'll just slip this in, that this is what we're considering. They'll take it into consideration also, it's not a big deal.
okay.
Make the declaration and the bylaws the first two that we get done though.
But you will be providing the budget for that, correct?
I'm gonna ask them for one, yes.
okay, everyone in favor? Passes unanimously. Alright. Under new business,
Actually, we have letter F as well.
Yeah.
oh, I see. Yeah, set a date and time for a formal tour of the front office to include meeting all employees that work there to learn what they do.
I'll make a motion to discuss this.
I'll second that.
My question, sorry, you need to say something.
Well, you don't really need a motion to discuss something. You put the motion on the table and
Motion's on the
discuss
table
it.
then, to discuss, yeah. As, what do you mean a formal tour?
Oh, I'll answer that because that's my line item. I said this last month, and I'll just, any new incoming leadership, whether you're a manager, you're an owner, you're a buyer, whatever you are, any leader of any organization, especially one that's tasked to make decisions for the betterment of that organization, should know how the organization works. And that includes knowing who works for the association. Not necessarily for me as an individual, because they don't work for me. They work, everybody that we employ works for the association. And our governing body is responsible for making those decisions that affect the people that do work for this association. So it is not an uncommon practice for leadership to get a formal tour of all the facilities that we're responsible for and to meet the people who actually work to sustain the operations of this association or the business, the corporation, whatever name you want to put on it. And the notes that we received, I'm going to just read them because honestly, I was very taken back by them. But it's saying, respectfully, management is opposed to the blurring of boundaries. This would undermine management authority, as it would give the impression that individual board member has some authority over employees. At orientation, our attorneys cautioned against such. Employees have expressed that they would feel uncomfortable, as if they were being evaluated by the board member to, quote, catch us screwing up, end quote. Some expressed dismay that their competence has already been called into question by board secretary. The secretary is found to be, quote unquote, intimidating. A formal tour is ill-advised. So I fail to understand how a planned, guided tour of board members, because I didn't request this for just me, I said anyone on the board should be getting this. I fail to understand how that isn't more intimidating than a single board member conducting an unplanned, self-guided tour. So what I want is something formal. And I don't think that's unreasonable to ask for, and it would be something that I recommend we do again when we have a new board installed, because it is not fair for me to sit here and make decisions, like let's say for healthcare, for example, for employees that I don't even know who works here. And how professional does it look if I'm in the store or I'm going for a jog and an employee of the Ford is waving at me and I don't even know that's an employee? I mean, it's just unprofessional. So it's a professional courtesy that's extended to leadership. I was told that I should just go do it on my own, but I think that's more intimidating and more unprofessional and will cause discord with the day-to-day operations as opposed to having something planned and guided and executed. That's why that I asked this line item to be on the agenda. Also, I asked for it 2 months in a row and was given 2 other different reasons for why I can't have a tour. So now I'm asking it to be an agenda item.
Would you be satisfied with each employee that you want to know what they do here by being referred to the job descriptions that were supplied to all of us previously? That you say, all right, this person is whatever, and here's a job description. And do you want to include the maintenance department and the RV park, golf course?
I'd like to see everything that our decisions affect. Yes, everything. If we have a maintenance department, shoot, I don't even know what's in the maintenance department. And I should know. I should know what's at the golf course. I should know what's at the airport, even though I do know what's at the airport. But I should know what's inside of our building here. When I came here to meet the election committee, I had no idea where the person was that was going to validate the members that are asking to be elected into the board positions. I had no idea. I don't know what anybody does. And I'm not saying this to say I'm incompetent. I'm saying this because I'm not going to go to the front door and knock on the door and say, hi, I want for you to tell me what you do, because that will scare somebody. It will. I mean, I know you don't like it when I bring up my military service, but when I was a section commander and I had 350 troops underneath me, we had a formal tour scheduled for every section that I was going to be responsible for with my decisions. And it was much less intimidating for me to be guided and escorted by whoever it is in charge. In our case here, it would be Mr. Lawrence or whoever he designates. And for them to say, hi, this is Airman Jones. Airman Jones is responsible for calculating how much money we spend. And then Airman Jones would stand up and say, yes, ma'am, I am, and this is what I do. And that individual was so proud to tell me what they did and how they did their job to better the organization. And that instilled a sense of pride, and it instills a sense of teamwork, that I understand what that airman did for the mission. That is no different than our organization here. If we have a secretary and she wants to stand up and tell me, ma'am, I'm a secretary. I'm the one who tabulates all of the minutes. And then after they're given to me, I check to see if they're spelled correctly, and I'm the one who takes them over to the courthouse to file them officially. Well, great, now I know what that individual does. It's a very simple thing. Now, with regard to the job descriptions, we were given job descriptions and then the next month told that it all changed. And then every month we're told, well, we're constantly changing our processes, which is fine. I'm all about innovation and I'm all about being streamlined. But I'm also uncomfortable continuing to make choices on behalf of this organization and not even know how many employees we have or what they do for our mission.
All right, any other comments?
Well, I have a comment. I believe that we were warned at the lawyer's office to be careful micromanaging. So, I'm just going to state it one more time. Let's be careful what we do.
Well, what Maria Perkins is saying, if somebody comes up to her and says, well, hi, Director Perkins, and she says, well, who are you? A face with an employee.
Meet your employees, that's it.
Meet your
Go
employees.
meet them.
Your plan is not to
talk
grill
them, say,
anybody.
how do you do, sir?
What?
I'm just asking. That's my whole question. I can understand that. I can. I'm up here. I probably knew half the people that is an employee. I do know who they are. I may not know what their position is anymore, but your whole purpose is not to grill an employee unless they want to say something.
Okay, we heard that there's some people here who are trying to talk.
Yes, I worked for one of the largest corporations in the world, FedEx. Every time we had a new employee hired in a specific area, they were introduced to the membership. The other employees, what's wrong? We don't, as an association, we do not compare to what the millions of people that FedEx offers. So why are we any different? Why can't you have a meet and greet? We elect a board member to know and make decisions for the entire membership. How can you make a decision that's going to affect Mr. Lawrence if you don't know who Mr. Lawrence is?
Of course, Jeff, thank you for your comment. And somebody else, were you trying to say something?
I was saying that all she's asking for is for all of y'all to go in there and meet your employers. That's it.
Well, she wants more than just
your
a meeting.
employees. She wants you to go say, hi, I'm Bill, I'm Maria, I'm Debbie, I'm all of y'all. What's your name? It's nice to meet you.
That's
If you
great.
have any questions, I'm Maria. That's what she wants. She's not wanting to go grill anybody.
Well, I'm not also interested in solving their problems.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
but-
but that's not my position. That's why he's here.
It's called meet and greet.
But yes, it's a meet and greet,
Meet
yes.
and greet is fine, but I don't know about, starting to get them to go in. Some people, employees have many different duties and they have to start going in and going through all the different duties. I think just meet and greet them is fine. Find out who they are. This, I'm Maria, you're Jane Doe, whatever, no problem.
Why can't that be done in a formal tour?
Exactly. A formal tour
You go
is
with
less
the group.
intimidating.
And if they want to stand up and say that all their stuff that they do, then they say it. If they don't care to, they don't have to. They can say, I'm so-and-so. And then you move on to the next
And I'll add that I had requested this informally via email. And both times, the first time I was told, well, no, we're going to have to revisit that because we're getting ready for an audit. Then I was told, well, it's gonna hinder operations, which I respect because I used to manage a large group of people. I get it. So if you schedule something, it's not informal, it's guided, so I can't run off and go do whatever I want. You're showing me and any other board member, which I recommend everybody goes on these. You're showing us exactly what is our purview with regard to all of these things we have to decide for the entire association. It's not just one building. We've got a lot of, I missed the tour of the motel, and I asked for a tour of that motel room so I could see it too. I'm not going to just show up and disrupt the day and say I demand to see this. That makes me more intimidating. So it's not an unreasonable request.
All right, in the interest of moving on, Richard.
One quick comment. Ms. Isaac, I would remind you of what the attorney told you specifically, and I would remind the board of what the attorneys told you collectively in the orientation. Do you remember?
What's that? I don't know what you're referring to.
I'm referring to not involving yourselves in the day-to-day operation and specifically not involving yourselves with the employees. Do you not recall?
But not to
Okay.
even know who your employees are?
I'll stand mute. I'll just.
Well, ask if that's okay with the attorney to.
I actually did ask that question, if we can get a tour of the facility, and the attorney said there's nothing wrong with that. What you're referring to, sir, is if I walk up to Christina and I say, Christina, how are you doing? Are you having problems at work? And then Christina decides, I'm using you as an example, this did not happen. And then Christina decides to say, well, actually, I feel like I'm being bullied. And then I take that upon myself to say, well, let's address this. That is inappropriate, and I have no intentions of doing that.
You've given us your purpose over, and I think most of us understand that we don't necessarily agree or disagree, but it's time to move on. This can go on endlessly. Would you please restate the motion that you made, Deb?
I just made the motion that we find out what Mrs. Perkins really wanted in this formal tour.
Okay, well.
I don't know what.
I think that we've been told that multiple times. So I would suggest that a motion be made to schedule a tour of the administration office employees to meet and greet only. Is there a second to that motion?
I want to go to all the facilities, all the buildings, not just the administrative office. I want to see everything. All the stuff that you've seen for years, I'd like to see for the first time.
I don't know what you're referring to, what I've seen for years.
Maintenance. I don't even know what other buildings we have.
I didn't get any formal tour of maintenance. I drove down there and looked at it.
Which is more
But-
intimidating than scheduling a formal.
Okay, so you want to include more than the administration office?
I would like the formal tour to be of all of our assets, to include if they have an employee working at that building, meet and greet the employee. But we need a formal tour of all of our buildings and all of our people. We need that. And I know that people were huffing and puffing about it, and there's comments about why is it an action item, but when I asked for it informally, I'm denied that. It's very common courtesy. So I don't know how you want to amend the motion, but that's what I would like.
I'd like to make the amendment to the motion. Who made the motion first? Me or
Dan.
Dan?
Yeah.
That we all get to go down to maintenance. Mr. Lawrence says this is our maintenance manager. And then if we've got somebody second in charge, then we can kind of view the whole area, see what's down there, and then go to the next one. And if somebody wants to say something to you, it's on them to do it. But Mr. Lawrence will tell you who they are. Like Philip is our what is he now?
You don't even know.
Oh, I do, but
Director of Operations, as he has been for
Director of
many years,
Operations,
yes.
yes.
Outside of.
So, and then if Mr. Garcia wants to say something to you, not you grilling him, but if he wants to say something to you, I would agree to that. Do it with the pro shop. But you're not gonna have your pro shop all help there because they split shifts, so.
It doesn't even matter.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't, like,
Or we
it's just a fundamental thing that we all should have.
Yes.
So however you want to word it, a guided tour. What I asked for was a guided tour of our facilities and our people, to
That
meet
would be my
the employees.
That would be my.
That's what I asked for. I did not ask for a map so I could go do it myself.
No.
I want someone to guide us through that, and it would probably be Mr. Lawrence unless he designates someone else. So however that needs to be in a motion. That's,
Yeah, that's your, well, and you're saying all facilities.
yes,
And they may not all happen on one day.
and that's fine. I'm okay with multiple days.
A lot of facilities, let's see.
There are.
We'd have the motel, 2 different motel buildings, the horse stables, the art club, the maintenance department, the swimming pool, Dickman Hall, the golf course, pub facilities,
Building, teen center.
And all of that list can be
RV
worked
park,
out as we
rec
figure this out.
center, yeah, Pulse Theater.
Landfill.
Landfill, yeah, I'd love to go see that.
Well, yeah, we've got an election coming up in March. Would it be better to postpone that until the new board is elected?
I'm happy to do that as
So it
well.
doesn't have to be done twice?
I'm happy to do that as well, yes.
You got somebody?
So I'd like to make a motion that when the new board is installed, we set a date and time for a formal tour of all facilities, a guided tour of all facilities, and a meet and greet of employees. So that would be like April.
That'd be your next one.
Are you gonna second that?
Oh,
I made a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been discussed, motion made and seconded, and all those in favor? 2-4, all those opposed? 2 opposed, 1 abstention. The motion fails.
What a waste of time.
Yeah, I think if you made me come back with a little more limited tour, you'd have better luck, but that's just my opinion. All right, under new business,
Don't have enough information on what we want to do.
If we put some guidelines to it, could it be brought back to question later?
Yeah,
Well, we
I
can
think
do,
so.
yeah, we can bring it back.
sure. Okay, I don't think your basic concept is fine, but I think it's too involved and too demanding to expect. All right, under new business, I know it's not on the agenda, but I'm gonna put this out, that if we can at some point schedule a workshop in February to work with the Unit 1 people that have quite a list of concerns that we all need to be involved in with solving. And so
Can we also put the horse club under?
yeah, we can include the horse club too. A workshop for Unit 1.
Can we please silence the conversation on the other side? I'm sorry. We did go over line F. That's what was the motion that just failed. And sorry, Mr. Sullivan.
All right.
Can we just provide our availability? Because I wasn't prepared for that, so I don't.
No, I'm not either.
I don't have availability for it, but I'm happy to provide
We
it.
did the drawing for the candidates, and I know some of them had chance to do the drawing.
Just waiting for
Yeah.
I'm just saying, could we please get together?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get to, but when we have all this discussion, a lot of people participating, it takes time.
Sorry, please silence your conversations over there on the.
All right. We will, it is agreed without a formal motion that we will communicate back and forth for time to have a workshop in February to deal with the horse club and the Unit 1 folks. That, everyone agree to that?
Yes.
Yes.
So we may have to do it by a combination of telephone, email, whatever, to come up with it. All right, now the next item is the determine the placement of candidates on the ballot for the election of directors. So we need all candidates to come forth, and I'll turn the I'll turn the chair over to the treasurer. Debbie Isaacs as the president and vice president and secretary are all involved. You have the chair.
Can I have all the order proxies? Because I understand someone had to leave, so 1, 2. I need seven people.
I'm sorry, I'm here to represent.
Okay. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who are we missing?
Seven,
Oh,
So last time we had them lined up in the front.
yeah, they're fine over there. They're
Well,
fine.
we can't see them on the video. We need to see them on the video.
Well, once I see the back of their head on the video.
Well, what we did last time was we have everyone stand
That's
up
okay,
facing
we
this
can turn
way.
the camera. That's a lot easier than having everybody.
Sandy, can we have a list of names?
Yeah. There. That should pick us all up, especially when they're gonna come this direction. Okay, what we've done is, I liked what we did last year, because we don't want anybody to say that we are playing favorites about who gets to draw for which position. So there are 7 face cards out here, ace through 7. You will draw a face card. That will be your position for actually drawing your name, okay? And then also, here are the election cycle dates, again with the caveat that the postage actually issue is still hanging fire on that, okay? Then, once you have drawn your card, I want you to line up in the order that the card tells you to. And where did our illustrious secretary go? There she is. There are 7 numbers in there. Each number is taped together, so be careful when you open them, because I didn't want them popping open. And that will be the order that you are on the ballot, and the order on which the brochure that goes along with this will also be based. Okay? So, Dan, you're standing there, just file up and pick a card.
All right.
And you can hold the card up because they're big number cards for us old people. And you can hold that up.
Only one, I'm sorry, only one.
Dan's number 5, and if you'll just line up, say just there for now. Number 3, Dan Sullivan, okay, this is Bill Link. Linda O'Brien, hold it up.
What number is Linda O'Brien?
She's
So
number
we're going
4.
1 to 5.
Hughes is number 2. The Fish is number 6.
I'm Ken Knox.
Knox is Ace, number 1, and number 7. Okay, now line up in that order, please.
Big Dan.
Am I one?
First.
All right.
Turn the camera to
first at
second. Ouch! Give me Christmas.
My husband would be proud.
Okay. Yeah, you need to fix that.
That's just the
I'm a
drawing
klutz.
number.
Right.
That's not the number on the ballot.
I know.
Okay.
I never win it.
Okay, so, number 1
All right.
for Mr. Knox.
Mr. Knox.
His proxy.
What's his first name?
Ken.
Ken.
Knox.
He has to work. Do I open it now?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I'm
Yes.
winning a lot.
Number 2.
What number?
Number 6. Susan Hughes.
Yeah, please state your name when you get up here. That's probably easier.
And what number?
Oh, number 1. We have to stay up there.
My name's William Link. Currently, I will be number, if I can get it open. Number 4.
Number 4. Name?
Linda, number 2. Linda O'Brien.
Linda O'Brien, yeah.
Dan.
We short a card?
Oh, are we supposed to, no, are we supposed to be lining up? Or does it go?
Yes, it does matter.
Not the one I give me one.
Why?
Only one, Dan, only one.
That's all I took. That's all I took.
No, it doesn't matter who mine is.
Evidently, she really take those well.
Yeah.
It's a test of your dexterity.
Number 3.
Number 3. I'm number 2. I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
I think,
Are we supposed to be lining up by
Dan?
number?
In a minute. What number? Fish?
What's your name?
Does it matter? We just shake them up or not? Just I know.
Number 5.
Number 5? And
Okay,
Bill Harmon.
I need one more card back from somebody.
Where are you?
You can have it.
7.
Number 7?
You're down here with me though.
Okay, so, number 1 on the ballot will be, as I call your name, come over here and stand, Susan Hughes. Number 2 will be Linda O'Brien. Number 3 will be Dan. Number 4 will be Bill Link. Number 5 will be Charles Fish. Number 6 will be Ken Knox, and this is not Ken Knox.
I don't have a flat top.
And then number 7 will be Bill Harmon. That is the order. Their resumes will go on the ballot. Thank you all for running. Really glad to see so many people running for a position on the board. Thank you.
That's a band.
One by one, so I can take y'all's picture?
Again, Maria will take your picture for the ballot.
Oh no, Christina will.
Oh, Christina, I'm sorry, Christina. After the meeting, she'll get your photo for the ballot.
Or if you cannot stay any longer, you call the admin office and ask for Christina and set up a separate appointment with her. I thought it was a very good meeting today.
It's not over yet.
Right, he sent an email. Okay, but I will check.
Now, can we kindly take a break? Please.
Are you gonna go hiding?
Take your place.
You gonna share?
Ready? You ready?
Oh, he did, yeah. You already gave a photo.
I know it would really be a problem staying
Let's continue.
Yeah, that's so much. Or if you don't shoot.
Okay, we're gonna have I'm sure a discussion over approving the minutes of October 17th. So do I, and we're gonna take a 10-minute restroom break at this time, and then come back and wrap it up.
That's cool. That's so neat. Too bad that cloudy.
I'm gonna meet you there.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. If it ever gets drier again, I'm gonna take the drone up to take pictures of everything. Oh yeah. There you go. I love this. Thank you.
I would love for you to.
I just got over it. In that open wall area. We all like, right? It was a good one. Half the show against shows up.
So anyway,
You got it. I'm gonna go take a dog.
Okay.
I'm gonna go.
I'll tell you when it starts getting bad.
He'll be in there.
Two doctors.
It was great.
One on each side of me, and both of them smoking chains. And I'm sitting in the middle.
Okay, you're letting them there smoke.
Before that,
My father-in-law gave me this. Ooh, that would be really, because we have.
I got this wine from my father-in-law. I was miserable. And I was the first case. And like, when you were sick,
On a boat, you're on a
like a yacht thing. We were fishing.
I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying. But
I don't want to
it's not just that.
Thank you. That's what I need.
You have all the right information. You don't follow your brain, you follow your heart.
That never tells you all everything else.
How are you, sir?
Well, by your house fairly often, but. Look to see whenever the hangar doors are open so I can see your, what is it, tilt rack.
No, I don't.
I do have old members here, and they're pretty good. Stepped up, volunteered, out generosity of their heart. Like my boys. So I can either give them to you or Debbie. Debbie knows who they are. Or later, but I need to get out of town. When are you going to read?
No, sir. Well, Park Days.
She's got my email address, and I guess you got access to it too. So.
I'll figure it out.
I'll make sure I get that.
Yeah, I think it's
Flashing red.
Yeah, because there's a lot of board functions.
I don't know if it is or not. Oh, yeah, it's red. It's recording.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna pause it then somehow. I don't know. I don't want to mess with it.
Well, it's still on red. There she is right there.
Yes, I get.
That ought to be interesting.
Anyhow, he's still on red.
We're going to reconvene the meeting. The next item is to approve the minutes of the October 17th, 2018 regular board meeting. This has been hanging out there for about 3 months now to get taken care of. The crux of the situation is this. There are two sets of minutes. One that was originally submitted by Secretary Perkins and one that was submitted by me subsequent to that. Along with that, there was also supplied what Robert's Rules of Order say the minutes should be, that they should be terse, brief, and record what happened, not what was said. In all fairness, that came out after the minutes by the secretary was done. My minutes differ in that they shortened up a lot of what was contained and said in Secretary Perkins' minutes. The main thing being under the Secretary's report, in that meeting of October 17th, there were a lot of grievances by Ms. Perkins included in her Secretary report, and those grievances were obviously directed against Richard and the administration for failure to supply requested various items. There's not any judgment being made on the grievances, but grievances against an employee, of which Richard is, should be handled in executive session, not open session. And so they did get thrown out in open session, and that happened, and it went on. But they don't need to be exasperated by also being written out, completely put in writing in the minutes, because again, then we're putting in what was said, not what actually happened. All the board members have had copies of these minutes for close to 3 months at least. They've had a copy of what Robert Rules of Order suggest and say the minutes should be. And so I don't see why we need a lot of discussion outside of Secretary Perkins. Any comments? And then I would hope we have a motion to prove one set or the other and be done with it.
Could I ask a
Secretary Perkins.
Thank you. First of all, we never established our rules of operation for how we are going to do the minutes. We never agreed to a specific set of anything. And with regard to Robert's Rules of Order, it was said, I believe at our first meeting, that we loosely follow Robert's Rules of Order. So holding us accountable to the verbatim messaging of what Robert's Rules of Order states and weighing the fact that we don't follow Robert's Rules of Order to the letter, and as quoted by you at one point in one meeting, that we loosely follow them. I don't see how there's a need for someone to come in and redo what my responsibility is. Second part of that is, my responsibility is the minutes. I watched the video again, and that once I'm given the draft of what the minutes look like, I watch the video. It takes a few hours to watch the video, and the time that I put into watching the video and ensuring that the minutes I am putting forth are a reflection of the meeting is a discretion that should be given to the secretary unless the board collectively votes otherwise. But in my opinion, if we are going to follow Robert's Rules of Order for one thing, we need to follow them for the entirety of Robert's Rules of Order, if that's your argument. So I stand by the ones that I wrote, and as I'm going to stand by the ones that I wrote for last meeting as well. And my job is the minutes, and until that responsibility is taken away from me, then I respectfully request that what I provide is what's discussed.
Thank you. Just to set the record straight, there was a resolution passed a few years ago by the board of directors to follow the Robert Rules of Order in an informal way. And so just so everyone is clear of that they do come into play, but not you don't have to go by the letter of them right down. And what the minutes should contain is a suggestion. So with that, I would ask for, can we go to a vote now to approve one set or the other?
Ms. Isaacs had a question.
Yeah, is there a motion? Huh?
I did have a question. Where are Christina's actual original minutes?
I got them right here.
Her original.
There they are.
Thank you. So then my next question would be, are we accepting hers with the secretary's input, or why do we have a set from you and a set from Maria and then a set from Christina? Christina's is the
draft.
What is executive secretary? Is that what you are? I don't know.
Yes.
But it is her minutes with Maria as secretary's input. Shouldn't that be the original minutes we accept or deny? I'm just asking a question.
Yeah. And if
And
you
my next
deny them,
question-
then there's an alternative set. And this has been going on for 3 months. Are we ever going to approve these minutes? One way or the other, one set or the other? The original minutes are done by Christina, and they were then they're sent out to the secretary to be proofed. And by the way, there are, on the proof section, there were a lot of them that had some very poor, hard to understand phraseology, use of the English language, but that were not bothered to be corrected. But the main thing that was corrected was to make sure the point was there that the horse club was not consulted in choosing their appointees to the equine committee, and then a lengthy blurb in the secretary's report about the grievances that Secretary Perkins has. But I think I will remind you, I believe that the minutes are the president's minutes, and they have the opportunity, as any director does, of reviewing them and bringing forth anything that is incorrect or improper in the minutes. And we'll get to that on the next set of
But
minutes.
shouldn't that be done in an email to board before they actually get printed and put out here? I'm just asking the question. I went back and I looked at my duties, I looked at your duties, I looked at vice president's duties, and then I looked at secretary's duties. But if there's a discrepancy and you've got a discrepancy, shouldn't that go to an email to all of us so we can look at it and recommend before these are actually put out to be approved? I'm just asking a
It
question.
was done, I'm glad you're just asking a question. The answer is this: they were put out to all the board members, the discrepancy, the change, 3 months ago. You've had 3 months to look at the differences between the two sets. And I think it's time that we just simply take a vote. We can vote on the secretary's minutes first, and if that's not accepted, then they can vote on the minutes I put forth. But there's been,
Well, I see
this
what
has
you're
gone on.
saying, but we need to make a policy somehow to where this don't keep coming up, and we all need to have input before they're actually put out to the board.
You have input when the minutes are submitted to you. Just like you're having input now. And
Well,
like,
that's just
the minutes,
today, we didn't get our minutes from, we didn't.
we're
get the
gonna have to
minutes
get
from
to
our
them. No, they were
board.
pulled out because there's something in there that's incorrect. And I point that out. And it can be, we can point it out and you can table them till next meeting. That's what I would expect would happen. Then you'll have a whole month to check it out and look it
We can make
over.
the vote here. These are questions I had, and I just was wondering why all of a sudden are 3 people doing minutes?
It's always been, or should have been, 3 people. I think it's the president's responsibility, as he chairs the committee, the board meeting, that the minutes are accurate and proper, and it's a double check. The secretary is to proof them, and also has the same responsibility.
Okay, but then if 2 people are arguing over them, then don't you think the rest of the board needs to give some type of response back? I don't know. I'm just asking because this is.
First of all, one of the problems is the secretary's report is not in our packet. It is presented the day of the board meeting. So therefore, if you want to say the report is hers, if we don't have it, it does not belong on the agenda.
There are several.
That's number one of those things.
If it's a big issue, I think we all need to concede that this is the way we're gonna try to do it. I don't want this to keep happening.
The policy that we have is to approve accurate, proper minutes, period. There's nothing more to it. And all board members get input and vote on it. When you come to the meeting and the minutes, you have a copy of the minutes. And if you see something inaccurate or improper, you have the right and the responsibility to bring it to the attention of the board and do something with it. So I would like to have a motion made to approve the minutes of the October 17th, 2018 meeting as submitted by Secretary Perkins.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
The motion is seconded. All those in favor, please raise their hand. All those opposed, please raise their hand. The motion fails by a vote of 3-2. The second motion I would make is that the minutes of the October 17, 2018 meeting as submitted by Dan Sullivan, President, be approved to go on the record as the official minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor, please raise their hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 3-2. The minutes are approved. Now, the last item here are the minutes. If I can find them of all the minutes for the December meeting. And without yeah, they weren't in the packet, we just got them this morning.
They were laying on the table.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to suggest one question, one change be made. There's a couple of other little ones that I wouldn't bother with. The major change is under action items. The consider approval to table a motion that a proposed amendment to the declarations requiring the architectural committee to meet twice monthly or more often at the discretion of the committee be sent to the FCSA membership to allow the legal team, and this is what I'm reading it as it is, allow the legal team to review the concern raised by a member regarding the declarations. Sullivan moved to approve. Perkins seconded the motion. Motion passed 3 in favor and 1 against. That's incorrect. That is not the motion I made. You can go back to the video and watch it. You start right in the area of 1 hour, 40 minutes, and you'll see that the motion I made, we had discussion and talk about it going to the attorneys along with their review of all our documents. But there was nothing added or specifically said that that's what had to be done with this motion or this complaint. And the motion I made was, and I quote, to table the matter until the January meeting, period. That motion then was seconded by Secretary Perkins, and it passed 3 in favor, 1 against. So that correction needs to be made on these minutes. I understand that you may want to watch the video, so if you wish, we can table these minutes till the January meeting for approval. Seeing we finally got the October minutes.
They just need to be corrected, but we've done another vote today, correct?
Yeah,
Did we do another?
if
Okay.
you correct that.
just clarifying.
I'd like to make a motion that it's tabled to the February meeting to approve those pending everyone being able to watch the video because the video does say otherwise.
Okay, you want to table till the February meeting?
Correct. For next meeting. Well, next month is February.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second. I'd like to watch the video. At what point did you say that was, Dan?
1 hour and 40 minutes approximately. I think that's where, if you start there, you'll be close to where it is.
Where it's at?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
I actually am the one that's requesting the correction in the minutes, and I do not oppose to that. So I will second that motion. All those in favor? Okay, that passes. So the minutes are tabled to the February meeting for approval. Finally, we've lost a lot of people. Well, we've been going back to letting folks talk and letting directors, giving them plenty of time. And so this is where we're at. We now have the 15-minute open forum for members. The list I was given here, all these people were able to speak at the action item comments. Does anyone else want to come forth at this time and say anything? Lisa Vale, please step forward.
I just had a quick question on the police, on the force, on the fort. The police force on the fort. Can you clarify what the, are they doing speeding tickets and like stop sign? Or are they also doing seat belts? What is their purview on, on the fort?
They're enforcing the speed limit and also all traffic signs.
Traffic signs, but not like seat belts or?
I believe they're obligated to enforce all of Texas law. I think that's a commitment and oath they're sworn to.
Well, but when this was brought up at the board and voted on, they were going to limit what the police were going to do on the fort.
According to the agreement, it is the enforcement of traffic signs and speed limits.
And speed limits, okay. That was I just wanted to clarify because I wasn't sure and I had people asking and I didn't know.
I believe they're just giving warnings at this point, unless it is very, very distinctly an abuse I've heard from law enforcement. They're still at a point of warnings.
Okay, just wanted to know where.
Okay, anyone else?
Details.
Sandra?
Okay, just for record, Unit 27, Sandy Hagan, also 5-year term director, and I want to address the Code of Ethics. This is based on some previous meetings I attended and Facebook accounts. Article 4, Section 16 of the bylaws refers to the Director's Code of Ethics. As a member and former director, I'm sadly disappointed in the failure of some of our directors to faithfully follow the Code of Ethics. The fact that certain directors have personal Facebook accounts to comment on association business is inappropriate. All association business should be available to members at a single point, fortclark.com, not on individual directors' internet platforms. I've also noticed that some of our members have not read the Code of Ethics because they appear to encourage inappropriate behavior in one director in particular. I strongly encourage all director candidates to familiarize themselves with the Code of Ethics before running for director. Candidates should not run if they cannot follow the code. The pertinent sections of the bylaws are as follows. Code of Ethics, members of the board shall hold themselves to the following standards of ethical conduct. Listen carefully to board colleagues, respect the opinion of fellow board members, respect and support majority decisions of the board, stay well informed about developments relevant to issues that may come before the board. Recognize a director's duty is to ensure that the association is well managed, not to manage the association. Represent all the membership that the association serves, not just a special interest group. Board members shall not show disrespect for fellow directors or their opinions in or out of the boardroom. Directors shall not discuss how they will vote on the agenda prior to the meeting. and they shall not interfere with the duties of the executive officer or undermine the executive officer's authority with staff members. I know from personal experience on the board that it's hard to hear criticism from a member or members, and it's easy to become defensive. Therefore, I have refrained from making comments until now. However, it's apparent that the board secretary is either unaware of the code of ethics or ignores the code, both when addressing the board and membership at meetings and especially in her Facebook account and minutes. She does not appear to respect other directors' opinions or majority decisions, and at times to represent a small minority of members and to eagerly pursue her own personal agenda rather than working for the good of the association and its membership. I respectfully submit that a change in decorum and respect for the association and its members is needed by all of our directors. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Anyone else? Okay. We will adjourn this meeting now to go into executive session, reconvening after it. And there's a possibility this executive session may be a bit long, so I'll give you all that heads up now. I thank all of you who toughed it out and stayed here. We tried to go back to letting everyone have their say for as long as they want and whatever they want. And so 3.5 hours later, here we are.
We should have all these cables. We should do
Okay.
wireless. Yeah. Just a
We-
wireless
The
one.
board is reconvening from its executive session. It is now 2:12 p.m. Present here at the reconvening is Director Bill Herman, myself, Dan Sullivan, Director Deborah Isaacs, and John Hope, which constitutes a quorum. Director, Secretary Maria Perkins had to leave early. In the executive session, we were given a heads up on future plans by B.O.D, possibly building another retention pond that could require some cooperation from the association when they do that. They seem to be abandoning for the second time the idea of doing the pond on the golf course. The Historical Society is going to move the flagpole for safety reasons on ground that they own at the little triangular memorial site up near the administration building on the way down to the pool. The board also renewed a ground lease agreement for an additional 10 years for Sam Lark on the ground that his hangar is set on out at the airport. The board also approved with conditions moving some of our banking to Chase Bank in order to take advantage of full-service commercial banking. It is subject to the comptroller coming back with details for safety and security measures in place. And so when that is done, he can present it to the board. The board will be up to the board to accept those and then move forward with the change. There were some other employee issues taken care of that are confidential, and there was a review of a permit granted for an auxiliary building that did not require a variance. That was a position the architectural committee took, but they wanted the board of directors to concur with that, which we did. The board also approved sending information or requests to our new HOA attorneys to with our input, cancel our arrangements now with Attorney Todd Durden to file suit and go forward on foreclosures and collection procedures. That's been a little bit slow, and the new attorneys may be better equipped to move forward more efficiently and with more speed. The last thing, I believe, was an agreement that we've had 8, I believe, complaint letters involving an employee, and those complaint letters needed to have a response. So the board has agreed to respond by proposing that the board of directors will make a commitment to formulate an FCSA communication policy with the assistance of legal counsel. The communication policy will establish a protocol for editorial review and approval by the board of directors of all official communications to be publicly released. The policy will also identify the official social media sources for information, as well as set parameters for use of personal and private social media forms by employees and board members to release unauthorized FCSA-related communications. All this, as stated, will be done with the approval and input from our HOA attorneys, and that will ensure that the problem that the complaint letters were focused on will not occur again. With all that, I don't have anything more. Does anyone else have a suggestion? Is anything I missed? Hearing nothing.
You were going to put to a vote.
To a vote, a motion.
The matter of the variance, I believe it was. The matter of the variance.
Okay, well, there is no variance.
Okay, but you were going to concur or
That the board, they did vote to agree with the.
I thought that was done in executive session, but we can do it here if you.
We just need to do the vote.
Okay, you want to make a motion, Bill, that we can.
Make a motion on the question of a variance that the board concurs with the decision of the architect.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. What else did I miss?
I think that's it.
Okay. With that,
Case closed.
do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
30.
We could go for another hour.
Oh, no, we can't. No.
I'll make a comment off the record.
Wait a minute.
Let's go.
Turn the record off then.
It can be on the record even though it's off. As far as
No, it can't, not if it's on that
I don't say nothing that I need to